Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and I've got a panel of guys this evening to finally talk about The Penguin, which we were a million years late on, and big apologies there. But finally getting to this, we wanted to do a full discussion on the 8-episode season. We did do a pilot discussion. I guess you can't say pilot with a thing like this, it got a full season order, but we did a first episode discussion. We did a sign flip, how we felt about on that when it came out. You know, we were like on time for that. And I also want to mention real quick that since the new Spider-Man show just started, friendly, which I have not watched yet, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, usually we would be doing that tonight, but I'm going to have to kick that back a week. So any of you guys that want to come in for that next week, feel free, but we'll do that next Monday and cover the first couple episodes. There'll probably be 3 dropped by then, so we'll just do whatever's out.
I think there's 5 by then. I think they put out 2 last week and 3 this week.
Oh, crap.
It is
3
really
this
weird.
week?
It is a really weird release schedule.
Is that half the season?
Yeah.
We might as well wait.
I think it's 8 episodes, and they're putting it across, 4 weeks.
Okay, in that case, we'll probably just wait and do a spoiler cast for the whole thing then. There's going to be no reason to go ahead and jump on it right away. I thought there'd be 3 and it'd be 8 or 10. We do it like X-Men, but...
No, that's what I thought when we were talking about it, but I saw the other day, no, there's going to be 5 as of this week.
Okay, we'll look forward to a comic review next Monday. And anyway, joining me tonight to talk about The Penguin, we've got Austin the Day Ghost.
What's up?
We've got Robert, 2 pickles is more than enough wild.
That is true.
And we have Jonathan No Cilantro Sandoval.
Hello.
John! I feel like I haven't seen you in a million years.
It has been actually 1,000,001.
Oh, is that? Oh, wow. Okay, so it felt not as long then, apparently, as it has been. John, it's good to see you, buddy.
It's good to be here.
John and I, hopefully in the not too distant future, will start doing Smallville again and other lengthy streams of TV shows. You might notice that my son Jayson is with us as well, modding and reviewing tonight. And
let's put the blame on me.
That Jayson. You might notice that we invited a 14-year-old to watch the show, and his age is exactly the lowest number in the MA rating. So I'm not a horrible father because, I think MA is 14 plus.
Huh. Okay.
So if we can actually, trust the age system, which I don't, it's case by case. I don't think my son Freddie, who's 10 right now, will be ready to watch the show until he's about 27. But Jayson at 14 was more than able to handle it, and that's not throwing Freddie under the bus, man. He just doesn't like violence at all. But anyway...
He's a peaceful man.
Tonight, complete spoilers. We're not going to do a non-spoiler section. We're not going to do sign flips, but we'll let these guys give their initial thoughts, just where they were on the show when it ended. We've all probably had time to watch it more than once. I've seen it twice now, so's Jayson. I bet Austin's seen it 4 or 5 times at this point.
I've only seen it twice. I thought about watching it again for this review and then just didn't get a chance.
Hayden Spring, isn't that TV-14? I guess I thought Mature was the same thing as TV-14. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, you said that, and I was like, I thought they were different. But
well, if they're different,
different ratings
I
here.
am a horrible father. It's fine. It's fine. Robert, did you get a second watch of this?
Not entirely, but the pilot episode I've seen twice for our reviews on that, and then the finale I actually just rewatched today, so I have that a bit more fresh.
Okay, cool.
In my memory.
You got the bookend.
Yeah.
I wonder
you
what
got
it's
the
like.
least messed up episode and the most messed up episode.
Yeah, there you go. I think I agree with that. John, did you get another chance to watch this? Or?
I was able to get the first 4 episodes rewatched, so I've seen the show about 2 times, except for the last couple episodes, which I've only seen once. So the first half is more fresh.
Okay, cool. So various levels of preparedness, but we've all seen the whole thing at least once, and
Yes.
I'm excited to see what our audience is like with this, because it seems like our viewers have been a little divisive on it. I've seen comments kind of across the spectrum, and there's some reservations that I'm seeing even as we start. That I one in particular that I agree with, and some that I don't think are a problem at all. So we'll get into it. It'll be a fun and exciting discussion. I'll read the super chat real quick. Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. Remember when shows used to be 3 to 22 episodes every year? Now it's 8 to 10 episodes every 2 to 3 years. What the F happened to this country?
Gotta love the streaming model.
How much do you think it's the average age of viewers? Maybe I'm wrong about this, but do you think any of it's the average age of viewers of this kind of thing, and of really just television in general, is kind of getting older? Like the generation after, and I guess I can even say 2 after me now, because I'm getting older, is doing a lot more of just YouTube and TikTok and that kind of stuff. So how much of it is just most of the people watching these things have jobs and families and lives and can't commit to 22 episode seasons anymore?
Also, just way more expensive now.
Yeah.
And then, I think that's why with animation, you'll see them greenlight a bunch of seasons, right away. Like, I know with that new Spider-Man show, which is what he was making fun of with that.
Oh, is it?
They've already greenlit a third season. So I think that's just to, fast track that process.
Well, there's a number of things he could have been talking about. He could have been making fun of Invincible, too. Because Invincible...
No, it does fit into a ton of things. He just said afterwards, this is a jab at Spider-Man.
Oh,
But,
I didn't even... Okay, I didn't even see that. I thought you were just making that assumption. Because
No.
Because Spider-Man has had the one season that, yes, took forever to finally come out, but Invincible had 3 years in between seasons.
And I mean, if we get
Or 2 or whatever
season
it was.
2 of The Penguin, which it sounds like we probably will, it's probably going to be 3-4 years, but it's also gonna be 8 years between the Batman movies.
Yeah, it's so funny because in interviews, the actors keep talking about the guy playing Victor. I forget his name. He seems like the most chill kid on the planet. But anyway, that guy in interviews keeps talking about how in setting up for the Batman Part 2, they wanted to give it a winter setting. And we're building to that, and I'm like, okay, so the Batman Part 2 will also take place shortly after the Batman, and will be set in the winter of 2022. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you see, Reeve is going to outdo Nolan. He's going to set his sequel 3 weeks after his first movie, and then he'll set the third one 18 years after the second one.
That's right.
That's how he's going to top it.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and then is he also gonna have Batman either die or pretend to be dead at the end of that, so that we still got the whole Rogues Gallery in a few weeks, and then
Yeah. He'll get shot in the side and then slowly bleed out over the next few weeks, like Caesar.
I don't know, man. That sounds like captivating storytelling. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, I want to hear from Jayson first.
All right.
Because
So you're thinking of just big takeaways
yeah, just
from
big
this-
takeaways. Just
from overall the show.
yeah, how much did you dig this? What really sticks with you?
Yeah.
And also, just what was this experience overall like for you? Because again, you're 14 and have never seen anything quite this rough and tumble and violent. Was there anything that was really difficult to get through? For the record, I did not let Jayson watch this first time out on his own. I watched it with him. I felt like I had to be sitting next to him. But he didn't seem to have too much trouble with it.
Yeah. I actually didn't this is gonna sound very oh yeah, I'm cool. I don't I don't have any problems with anything, right? But I didn't have very many problems with this. Just because I have seen other violent things like the John Wick movies and other things that have violence in it. there were a couple things that I did have a hard time getting through just because I have a big thing with like sharp objects and needles and that kind of thing. And there's a little bit in this show of that.
But subject matter overall was probably more intense than some other things you've seen.
Yeah, but it didn't really take away from it for me, the violence aspect of it.
What about the weird, creepy, like Freudian, penguin being kind of into his mom thing? Like you never seen anything like that before. I'm like, subject matter wise, there's some dark stuff here.
Yeah. I think the subject matter might be the best thing about the show and just how they handle it. My big takeaway from the show is just how they handle the psychological aspect of each character and how they really flesh out each of the main characters. And each character gets their kind of token episode where they really flesh them out, and you really get into this kind of you really get into their heads, and you can see what each character wants, and you're kind of rooting for each character, which I really like. And so the way that you,
even while arguably there's not a good person really in this show,
and
Victor's the closest, but he's inching toward the way they play it, where it's like these characters are doing bad things, but you're also like, they, at least for me, they kind of make you invested in that, and kind of have you rooting for those, like, these bad people, by getting into their heads and figuring out like how they work internally and what they want. Yeah, it's textbook sympathetic.
Yeah.
They don't have to be likable. In some cases they kind of are.
Yeah.
But it's about understanding where they came from and how they got that way.
And the fact that the status quo changes so much during the show, because it's so long, also I think helps with that. Where
even though it's only over a few weeks, yeah.
There are times when characters are very not sympathetic because they're making choices that you really don't like at all, and then the status quo changes and suddenly they're sympathetic again, and it's like, it's this weird, especially with Cobb. He's very, like, he becomes not likable and then likable again, and then by the end you have no idea what the heck is going on. And so it's very that was the big thing that I got from it, was especially like in writing, just how you can get into how you get into these characters' heads, and especially and also how they act, like the actors as well. That also helps you get into their heads.
You haven't seen a lot of crime drama stuff.
Not a lot, but I do really like the stuff that I have seen.
That's a genre you're getting more into, because obviously everybody's comparing this to things like Sopranos. There's definitely some Breaking Bad comparisons to make. I had this thought today. I think Victor is oddly, especially by the end, like, again, full spoilers, even like more of a tragic Jesse Pinkman, which you've not seen that show yet, but for folks that have. But yeah, what else do you want to throw out real quick before we just get some other broad thoughts from these guys?
I want to say it's a really fun show. And it might be, like, I was really happy when you were like, okay, we're not doing like a how we felt about with this, where we're doing a good thing, bad thing, because I couldn't think of I couldn't think of a worse thing. I think this is kind of a perfect show, in my opinion. There's some things, obviously, story-wise, you're like, why is the character doing this? But it makes sense with the story, and like, you have arguments for why it works with the story, and so that's not a bad thing. That's just how the story goes. And so there are parts that I prefer over other parts, because it's a really long 8-hour TV show. But I think it's kind of a high all the way through.
How well, and then we'll get to these guys. How well do you think it matches tone and feel and the world building of the Batman? Because I imagine part of the reason you were as into this as you were is because you adore that movie.
Yeah.
It's neat, by the way, that you said this was fun, because I thought you might find this really oppressive. And I think it's interesting. I think it's cool that you caught on to the lighter aspects of this.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
makes me think you'll probably like Breaking Bad. But
Yeah. But I did say this in the pilot review, that this is kind of, I really liked that it was kind of more of the same vibe and tone of the Batman, just way darker. And I really wanted to watch the Batman again to compare them. I didn't get a chance.
I didn't get a chance either.
But it is a very different thing. It being a crime drama and it being so dark and so violent, psychological.
But did it feel enough like the same world?
Yeah, it does.
And did it feel cheaper on TV?
No.
Because that was an aspect I was really surprised
was the big,
by.
yeah, especially in makeup design. And one more thing I wanted to point out is, I know you didn't watch the behind the scenes stuff after each episode.
I didn't get to that.
But I was able to do that the second watch through, and they talk a lot about how they use camera work and hand cam versus when it's on tripod, when a character is stable and when they're freaking out, and when they want to do like close-ups and when they want to do backup shots, and I found that really interesting.
Especially because we've been making a movie together,
Yeah.
and we've had some of the same conversations ourselves.
Yeah, and I was actively looking for it, and it's kind of genius how they were able to come up with certain camera work.
So is there a consistency to that where like when the camera is doing certain things that's representative of like mood or motivation?
Yeah.
I did not pick up on that, but that's super cool.
Yeah.
It's a Dutch angle when you're in the villain's lair. I have to ask though, now that you said that, did you see the best behind the scenes video? That being the one where it's him in full penguin outfit, talking in his real voice.
I did not.
That is a pretty great one. I forget what he's saying, but it's just, you see him and you're like, oh, that's Oz, and he starts talking in his Irish voice, and you're like, whoa.
Wow, I get the sense. I got the sense that if he put that makeup on, he was gonna be in that mode and wouldn't be able to help it.
No,
Well, it was after they rapped.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what it is. I think it's like his rap speech.
Mhm.
So he's like in full penguin, and he's like, "I just got to say, it's been a real good time doing the show with all of you." And it's like, whoa.
Would have been great if he gave us a good rah 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 like right after that.
He chomps down on a cigar. I think he's in like that final scene outfit too, where he's in like the full tuxedo with the top hat.
Yeah. Did you hear what Jayson just said? Say
No.
it,
Yeah,
say it again, Jayson.
the penguin wants an epic costume.
Unseen Hand says he was pleasantly surprised by how much influence this had from Penguin Pride and Prejudice. I picked up on that too. That is one of my favorite miniseries from the last decade. And that, God, I'm rusty. That was drawn by the guy that was drawing Spawn for a long time. His name is on the tip of my tongue. I'll think of it here in a little bit. That's a great standalone Penguin story, and was kind of the only great dark standalone Penguin miniseries like that for a long time. I don't know if anything else has come out since then. But as soon as this was announced, the first thing I thought was, I hope somebody reads that book, and it was really clear that they did. Got a couple more super chats. So let me just read those real quick. Bob the Hun, people Sorry, I'm still messing around with this. People say the main theme of the show is narcissism and putting yourself first. We think Penguin is a crook with a heart of gold, but we learn the only person he ever cared about his whole life is himself. I would argue that if, and yes, it is about narcissism, it is about disloyalty. I would say the most important word in pegging down theme for the show is disloyalty, even before it's narcissism. But that is a correct word to use. It comes up toward the end of the show correctly. But I would argue that if you were really paying attention, all roads are leading all the way through the show to what happens at the very end, and with Victor, and that it's pretty clear that Oz is always about himself, and he just consistently like always does whatever he needs to do, both to survive and get to the next rung. And the only place where I thought we might have the heart of gold thing, and then he would make all the wrong choices and he would transform into more of a monster by the end, was the very beginning, before he shoots Alberto Falcone. When he has that speech about wanting to be the mob boss that takes care of everyone, I was duped for a second. And then he pulls the trigger, and immediately after that, it became very clear to me, and every scene supported this subsequently, that it isn't about his wanting to actually take care of people. It's about perception. It's about legacy. It's about people seeing him as the guy that does that. And maybe there are things that suggest that deep down he's maybe trying to tell himself that that's what he's about, so that he can get himself through the day. Maybe there's a little bit of that, and you see hints at humanity, especially at the end with Victor, because I think the reason, we'll talk about all this, but I think the reason he kills that character is because he's afraid that he's developing a real, honest-to-God, emotional human attachment, and he can't have that to survive in the world he's in and be at the top. And so he doesn't allow himself to be human. So he has tons of opportunities to change into a better person that he doesn't take. But we just had a super chat, and then I just kind of speechified. But if anybody wants to jump on that, or does anybody disagree with me on that?
I do think with the Victor thing, I think it's for two reasons. I think it's both that, and I also think that another part of it is that Vic is the one that starts off the like second in commands killing off their like the person above them, and I think there is that part of him in the back of his head that's like, he's the one who did that and he's the one under me, so he will eventually outgrow me and do that to me.
Yeah,
I do think it is both of them, though.
Yeah, which is heartbreaking because you, as an audience member, know Vic would never do that, but Oz is so distrusting that, like, of course, that's something he'd think about. But I think it is both of those things. It's that he has gotten too attached, and to Cap's point, it's also he thinks enough of his humanity is with his mother, and that's almost gotten him killed a lot at the end of this show. So like that's enough humanity for him. He doesn't have room for anybody else to get attached to, and the finale of the show makes that incredibly clear.
Well, and I also think that there's an interesting discussion to have about gender and the way he treats women versus men. I think this is just my read, but I think when you get to the end, the only person that Oz, and it's possibly completely subconscious, that Oz has actually developed, again, a real human attachment with is in fact Victor, and that with his mother and with his girlfriend, these are both people that he completely objectifies and treats like objects that he needs for self-fulfillment. And Victor is the only person he really respects, and I think the moment where he actually respects that person, he worries that he's too close to him, and that makes it a weakness. Austin may also be right about that second point. I hadn't even thought about that. That it's interesting, Austin, that he tells Victor how impressed he is with that second in command plot, that he would have never thought of that. He couldn't get to where he is without Victor, and that's what he tells him immediately before he kills him. And that's a really good piece of evidence toward what you're talking about.
Also, is he? I just thought about this after Victor kills that one guy. And Penguin kind of and Penguin tells him like,
oh, you're talking about Squid?
Yeah, like it gets easier.
Yes.
Is he kind of like talking about himself?
Yes.
And thinking about, okay, at some point I'm going to have to kill Victor.
Oh, I didn't have that thought, but I thought that was all about his brothers.
Yeah.
And there's there's a lot of major plot points in the show that I think there are a couple of different potential reads for. I don't think any of it is too ambiguous. I just think that their Penguin is such an interesting character that there are a couple of different directions that you can look at it, and he still is the same guy. But anyway, I saw that as it's possible that Oz is either really premeditated in the first place when he kills his brothers, or that's an idea that he just, in locking them in, that he just thought of in the moment and left. And I also thought this is like really realistic child stuff. And I just kind of got lucky that he's in this situation where, well, I can have my mother all to myself, which is what I've always wanted. And then because keep in mind, he doesn't have to actively murder them, right? He just he just locks the door, leaves them in there, and then conveniently they're able to be dead, and or like he's able to let them die, and then after that he becomes a real honest to God actual killer. It gets easier.
Yeah. And they talked about this in the behind the scenes, where it's not he kills them, it's he lets them die.
Right.
And
that's an important
which is
distinction.
kind of maybe worse. At least in that moment.
And if I'm right that it's a spur of the moment choice and he's just improvising, that establishes his MO for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's how he does everything. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, because one thing Austin talked about on a review of the pilot, it's like this version of Oz is a guy who can talk himself out of anything and come up with these elaborate schemes on the fly, but he's also an incredibly impulsive character, like killing Alberto in the very first episode. That's not something he's planning on doing.
Yeah, that's
he
not
just does it in the
calculated.
moment and then has to figure out what to do next. You know, that's goes all the way back to what happened with his brothers.
Yeah, this is also a show that like really benefits from watching it more than once.
Yes,
like
it
there's so
does.
many lines that change meaning once you've seen it all. Like in the pilot, there's that bit when Sophia's like first coming down on him, where he's like, "Oh, you know, a lot of people would be happy to find out like their brothers were taken out," something like that. I don't remember the exact line, but he's got a line like that, and it's like the first viewing, it's that's like a funny little joke.
Well, and then there's like interesting lies he tells that you don't realize are going to be of consequence until episodes later. Because in that same, I think maybe even that same scene, he tells her, or maybe it's the same episode, I can't remember. He tells her that his mother is dead, and like I filed that away. I noticed that. But then that becomes obviously a really important major plot point toward the end when she tells Maroney, I think, that his mother is dead, or maybe it's the girlfriend when he goes to her house. I can't remember. This is a very complex show with a lot of moving parts, and some of the moments run together. But you get to the second to last episode, and of course when she realizes that his mother is alive and he can use her for leverage, you go, well, obviously this is why he told her he was she was dead, because he's always thinking 3 steps ahead and knows that she might use that for leverage if she figures out that he was the person that killed her brother, or if she just wants to get revenge on him for being partially responsible for getting her thrown in Arkham. She has lots of motivations for doing terrible things to the Penguin.
Yeah, because she is the sympathetic villain, and he is the completely unsympathetic protagonist.
Yep.
Yep.
We haven't heard from John yet. John, what were your overall feelings about the show?
So I'm not a big crime drama guy. So going into this, I was like, I'm watching this because it's Batman, not because they're Batman related, not for the crime stuff. But I ended up really enjoying the show overall. Mostly the stuff with just seeing like the levels of corruption in Gotham. I think this is one of the best interpretations of just how far this city has fallen to the point where it needs a vigilante like Batman, especially in like episode 4. And then of course Penguin was the best for me, the best part. I like Penguin a lot as just a character, but I've never really liked any or most of at least the adaptations that we've had. So to finally get this, which is more closer to what I'm looking for the Penguin, was for me the best part of the show.
It is really impressive to me the couple of levels the show works at. I would, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic when I say this, but I don't know that there is another comic adaptation, at least in series form, that is this much for audiences that don't care about the comic source material. And I also think that it works wonderfully well for a lot of us anyway that do. As I always say, there's lots of different types of Batman. There's lots of Batman for different kinds of people. This is darker than some people want for their Batman or their Batman-related material. For me, it's exciting, and the Batman was too, but this is even more so in going back to the late 80s, early 90s, and I guess beyond, even up through No Man's Land period of comics. The your Alan Grant, your Chuck Dixon, your Denny O'Neil, that era, and in the like crime drama stuff. And that's why I'm really hoping that they do actually make a Gotham PD show, because these guys need to be writing that stuff. They just kill it. It'd be wonderful. I did really appreciate, by the way, that there's hardly any remnants of that in this show. I really expected us to have that like sympathetic cop character that we follow. We don't have that at all. We have like one recurring
mustache guy
character
with that weird voice,
and he's a drug addict.
Voice guy.
Yeah, the raspy voice guy, and he's a drug addict, and he's totally corrupt, and you have no sympathetic police officers in this, which was kind of oddly refreshing to me, especially because, sorry I'm jumping around, but especially because so much of the stuff we've gotten in the last several years following bad guy characters, and there have been a lot of them, nearly always make them anti-heroes and like sympathetic, like with a capital S, kinds of characters by the end. And this not only doesn't do that, but with the Penguin, but like I said earlier, there's kind of no good people, even though they're all really interesting. And it was nice to see something take that risk and make it a real honest-to-God character study and make me interested in following these people.
It kind of doubles down on him just being an awful human being.
Mm-hmm. I took him as like a complete sociopath,
yeah.
In his lack of empathy for people. Even his mother, who he loves, like you said, Cap, it's all about perception. He does objectify her in a way, and like there are so many things that happen in the finale of the show that don't faze him. Like his mother tells him so many times she hates him, and he doesn't care because he doesn't care what she actually thinks.
And that's consistent all the way through. He does that with lots of other characters too. Remember when Maroni tells him to go to hell, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll see you next week." Like that's how he operates. It's awesome.
Yeah, Dad, I
Some
wanted
of the
to
best
ask...
comedic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, Austin. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say some of the best comedic stuff in the show is you'll have like a moment where he gives like a big, like heartfelt speech to Sophia and how much she means to him.
Yeah.
And then the guns start blasting and he's like, screw her, just leave her. Leave her to die, I don't care.
Well, and you gotta love, yeah, and that was fun on a structural level because you don't see her side of it until the next episode.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
and I really like that. And I've seen a lot of things like try to be all plot twisty and not handle what we see now versus what we see later very well. And this show understands how to do nonlinear that way.
Also, I really like how we see Penguin as like a side character in those flashbacks, and how he's not as much to the top as he is. The way we've seen him in the past 3 episodes.
I was gonna say a second ago, Austin, that Sophia really understands the Penguin better than anybody else, I think, and is calling it in a way that maybe even the audience doesn't fully understand until at least part of the way through or most of the way through. So when you get that bit toward the end, to a point that Robert made a minute ago, when she's just trying to get Oz to confess to murdering his brothers, and she's about to cut his finger off, and then she says, or her finger off, and then she says, "You would have just let me do it. Like, you don't actually care about her mother or your mother." And I think she's 100% right on that read, which is why I was suggesting earlier that he thinks he loves his mother. He doesn't really love his mother, or maybe he's not capable of love on any real level. And the only reason he gets so close to that with Victor is because he sees so much of himself in that character, and respects him because he's molded him and thinks that he could get to a point where he's at the Penguin's same level of master strategist and of thinking on his feet and all of that. And then, of course, he
realizes
he can't have that, so he's got to get rid of
that's
him.
not a good idea, because he's just gonna kill Penguin probably.
I also love the irony. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, well, and if I could do like classic rewind cap,
Yeah.
you almost have like 2 sides.
Oh,
Like,
here
on
he
one
goes.
side you have
It's going to be a
Penguin.
food metaphor. It's going to be a food metaphor.
It's not a food metaphor. I wish it was.
Oh.
No, I'm doing your Red Hood, like your line of
Oh,
like all the characters fit into it.
Okay, that's
Uh,
good. Yep.
You have Penguin on one side, and you have probably Maroney. Maybe it's either Maroney or Vic on the other. Where it's like you have the like family person, and then you have the person who doesn't care at all, and then in the middle is probably Sophia, who has this family that pretends to care about each other, even though most of them don't. And like you have like a kind of line that all the characters fit into on that.
Yeah, can I change it a little bit?
Absolutely.
I want to put Penguin on one side and Sophia on the other side, and everybody else is in the middle. And the reason I say that is because Sophia is massively damaged and starts to come much closer to the Penguin side of that line toward the end. But if we can look at it as just who these people are naturally, where the Penguin starts is where the Penguin ends. And Sophia is a different character by the end, as she is especially when we meet her in her flashback before she's done literally anything wrong at all. When she goes to Arkham and says she's innocent, she is. One of the best moments in the show is when she bashes Magpie's head in and screams she's innocent.
I'm so mad about that. Now we can't have Magpie in a Batman movie. Like, come on, man. You're wasting all of these great characters.
All of the best D-list. Look, I'm just glad Film Freak wasn't in the show, because I was worried to death that he was going to kill off Film Freak before Batman could fight Film Freak, and that didn't happen. So
I would have loved it though if a Film Freak was just there, like in like, the women's side of Arkham, and it was never.
Oh, why'd you gender flip Film Freak? How dare
No,
you?
he's just like a guy, and
He's
they
just a guy.
never address it. He's just there.
But I was gonna say, to that point, I love the irony that Sophia becomes an absolute psychopath by the end, and arguably, maybe more than arguably, deserves to be in Arkham. She is the Batman villain that starts off, relatively normal, and or maybe normal is not the best word, especially in Gotham, but she starts off well adjusted, and she's. And then she becomes a honest-to-God Arkham inmate. And the Penguin belongs in Arkham from childhood.
Yep.
And, of course, never within the course of this show ends up there and actually gets, again, all the way to the top of the totem pole for organized crime. Which, by the way, you had to kind of know, like, this show is really unpredictable moment to moment. But the overall arc of it is pretty clear from the beginning. And that's not a criticism. Like, the fact that it gets where I kind of thought it would by the end, but I didn't know how it was going to get there, was immensely satisfying. The Penguin needs to be running most of our organized crime by the end, and he needs to kill his new protege, who you're not sure which way that's going to go at the beginning, as the ultimate example of who this man really is. And it ticks both of those boxes at the end. From the start, I was like, those are the two things that have to happen in the show. And I thought with Victor in the pilot, it was possible that he would turn on Penguin by the end and they would have like a big showdown. That was the only other place I thought it might go. But I was pretty sure they'd go where they did. And I was glad they did. But again, in the moment, I wasn't sure if it'd go there.
Well,
sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Well, with Vic's arc, since you mentioned Breaking Bad earlier, it's funny because to this day, you still see the discourse of people saying, I mean, Waltz, he wasn't that bad. You know, he was always justified what he did. He's still kind of the hero.
I question those people. I don't want to be friends with them, I don't think.
But what reminded me of that, though, is, I'm sure you've heard this before, Kat, that the original plan for Jesse Pinkman was for him to die at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
And that would be the loss of Walt's, conscience, so to speak, and then he'd get worse out of that. I don't think the plan was for Walt to literally kill him, but that's what it would represent, and he'd go even further in ability after that. So with this, I did kind of read
I bet he would have let him die of a drug overdose like he does his girlfriend later. That's probably what would have happened.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. But then at the end, it's like the show made a conscious effort of saying, no, this is Oz killing whatever bit of empathy you had for himself by taking out Vic, and it's really hard to watch. And it's, again, as you talked about earlier, just after all these villain projects we've seen from certain studios in recent years, it's just so refreshing to let a protagonist be a bad guy. Like, you hate him at certain studio. But I mean, it's just like, he was such a fun standout in the Batman. He's only in a couple of scenes, but he's like the comic relief of that movie, and now I hate him. And it's a compliment, it's just wonderful writing, and it's really painful and sad, but really well executed.
Yeah, Dad, I wanted to ask you how much comic stuff is in here. Because obviously I don't know comics.
I'm glad you asked. We'll get at it in a second. Let me just tack on real quick to what Robert just said. I've seen the read at the end that to something you just said, Robert, that Oz is stamping out like the very last shred of humanity he has left when he kills Victor at the end. I don't think that's what's happening at all. I think it's that character making crystal clear that, again, that it's what we've known all along. His loyalty lies only with himself. So the distinction is there is an actual human being in there. If he was just a one-dimensional monster that kills everything that moves, he wouldn't be any interesting to watch. And I've heard people also say, or I read some YouTube comments in some interviews, and saw some kind of, to me, surprising criticisms of this show. And one of them is, well, if he kills Victor at the end, it makes him just a one-dimensional supervillain now. He was interesting before that. Now he's not. And to that I say, wrong, sir. And you're not paying attention. This is a character that has the capacity for empathy, and all the way through he ignores it. He could embrace it, and he's still a very broken, messed up person, and he's still a sociopath, certainly. But there's at least a residue of that, and it's always there. It's just he ignores it. There are lots of examples of his stamping that out, and that's just the ultimate one to confirm what we've known all along. That's the distinction I'd make.
Also, the hardest part for me that takes you from bad to I need Batman to obliterate this man is not just that he kills Vic, it's that he then takes his money and then takes his ID so that he'll never be identified when they bring him in.
And after the speech 2 episodes earlier, or whenever it was, that we'll be remembered, they'll tell stories about us.
You're just going to be another body in Gotham now.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part.
And
It's
we can argue about whether it was always his plan to kill Vic at some point. I'm sure in the back of his mind, he was saying, I'm going to use this guy as long as I need to, and then, I don't know, there's not another phrase coming to my mind right now, Austin, except groom him fast.
Well, and you could tell he didn't care originally when Victor left the first time. He didn't really care, and then he came back and he was like, oh, I'm so glad you came back. Right.
Yeah, because he kept proving himself to be useful.
Yeah.
And also I think it feeds into Oz's ego that he kept getting better at stuff.
Yeah.
Because Oz is creating this guy, he's molding him.
Yeah.
And so in that way he uses him like an object, just like the women in his life. But the difference is I do think there's a real respect that happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main reason he dies.
That's what makes Vic's arc even more tragic, is that he had the opportunity to leave, and in that moment, at least in that episode, because Vic thinks, well, if I leave, he's going to send somebody to kill me or something. I can't run away with this. But no, I think Oz just would have forgotten about him. I don't think Oz would have gotten out of his way to find Vic or send somebody after Vic. I just think he would have moved on, not necessarily out of compassion, just to, whatever, he's gone. So I think Vic had multiple opportunities to leave, and he always made the mistake coming back, which is just really sad.
And what's also tragic is you can tell that Victor respects Oz.
Yeah.
More than he should.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of comments.
Like him.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of comments saying this character is stupid for doing that, and he's unbelievable because he doesn't just go to the train station with his girlfriend. He doesn't just run. And again, I say you might not be paying close enough attention. Although I could see why that might be a bridge too far for some people that have trouble just putting themselves in the exact situation this kid is in, because. I would respect anyone that says it's a little unrealistic that a kid with his upbringing, who's got clearly respectable but poor parents, that's raised right, would go this direction. But then that's part of the social commentary with the class warfare, where then we get into the issue of if this kid was preoccupied, it helps that he's as young as he is too. He's not lived enough life yet to be mature about these things, and also he's just suffered a major tragedy a couple of weeks ago. So all of that plays into it, but it's important to note that this is a guy who was very preoccupied by his father not doing what he needed to get a leg up in the world, and that's a kid that is in a vulnerable enough place to believe Oz when he says you can't make it with legitimate business. in this world. Like, if you're gonna make something of yourself, you have to do it as a criminal, and you have to do whatever you need to anyone to make it. So I buy the allure of that.
Yeah, and he's also looking for a father figure, which he starts to.
That too.
And you can
Awesome.
tell that by the end he really feels comfortable around Oz, because that big speech he makes before he dies about family, he like barely stutters, and then
That's a
Oz
great
just kills
point.
him.
Well, it
Which is
also
also
goes
something.
into how Oz is, they say multiple times, can talk his way into anything or out of anything. He knows how to work people into doing what he wants them to do.
I also like the seemingly minor detail that his girlfriend is in California, one of the most expensive possible places to go and live. So he can stay here and get rich with Oz with drugs, or he can go try to make a legitimate living in freaking California.
Good luck.
I don't think that was an arbitrary choice.
I think it was a good idea to stay.
Oh, you do? Did you see what happened to him at the end?
Well, I mean, he had a good time, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, she's gonna go get killed by famous Hollywood actor Basil Carlo, and that'll be part of the beginning of the next movie.
Wow, what an unfortunate happenstance. Real quick, I'll just read this super chat. Chewbacca's Lover says AMA is the TV version of R, 17 and older. Yes, thank you. I realized that shortly after somebody said TV 14. But I don't know. Jayson seemed to
That's
handle
fine.
himself okay.
I got through it.
Every kid is
Wait,
different.
Okay, I saw a few people bring this up. Should be noted.
Yeah.
It's 17 or older, or 17 or younger with parental guidance. You fulfilled the parental guidance part, so you are good, Cap.
There you go. Okay, thanks. Well, I feel better now.
Because in this country, you can bring a 5-year-old to an R-rated movie for some reason.
Yeah,
But
which I would not. I would not do that, no matter how mature I thought the kid was.
I turned out fine.
Oh, I've been watching rated R movies most of my life. It's fine.
See, we have a 50-50 sample.
I know we've been talking about the Victor death a lot, but one more point I wanted to make about that is I love the ambiguity, and this is a place where I'm not going to say if you don't agree with me, you're not paying attention, because I think you can look at this both ways equally. I love the ambiguity about whether Oz is premeditated when he kills Vic out in front of the water. I think that can go either way. Now, the fact that it was an isolated enough area like that, and how deliberate he is with the wallet and everything kind of suggests that it was at least in the back of his mind, like maybe he would do it now, or he's probably going to do it now. But I think another way you can interpret it is the moment where Victor says, "I see you as family," is the moment where he makes up his mind, this is now when I'm going to do it. And again, remember, Oz is not a master manipulator, he's an improvisational manipulator. So most of the decisions he makes are in the moment in response to whatever else is happening. And sometimes, as Austin said, it's impulsive, and sometimes it's very, very calculated. And so he's really good at playing chess and thinking 3 steps ahead. He doesn't have to have his whole stratagem planned out already. And it's one of the best examples I've seen in a long time of actions and consequences. I love all of the problems Oz makes for himself while he's also fixing things, as he says, while he's also solving stuff. He makes as many dumb mistakes as brilliant moves. And that stuff is hard to write.
Yeah. When specifically with that Vic death scene, because the way he plays it is he's just like, Vic, like after he said the family thing.
Yeah.
And that also plays both ways, because that's either this is the moment I've just decided I'm going to kill you, or it's you just made it harder.
Right.
Like, thank you.
And before that moment, he gives him like the rest of his whiskey, which to me reminded me of like the pilot when he was first considering killing Vic. Like,
Yes.
here's like one last moment of peace for this kid before I kill him. Here you go. Here's a swig of this, because that's me being nice.
Now look at the sunset.
I look at the sunset, and
The
part of
sunrise.
Well, it also gets him a little bit inebriated. He's not gonna react as well if he just sucked down a quarter of a bottle of whiskey. Like, you notice there's like maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't think I am. There's a decent amount left in that bottle, and he kind of sucks it down. Like that's also probably calculated.
Yeah, I mean, part of Vic's downfall is certainly his ambition, which is what spared him in the premiere. Like, that's what sold Oz on keep him around, was his ambition, and then that's part of what gets him killed. And then part of Sophia's undoing, I would say, is her vengeance, kind of like the movie The Batman.
Right.
She is so consumed by vengeance, and it's like, if you just put a bullet in this guy, Oz, and just left, like, you'd be fine. But no, because Sophia is an extremely sympathetic character, like John was saying about how corrupt Arkham was and how that messed her up. But she, again, had multiple opportunities to leave, but she let vengeance consume her, and then she ended up in the last place she ever wanted to be again. So nobody got what they wanted except for Oz.
And she didn't try to leave until she thought Oz was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's too late.
And she is my favorite, like, psychological writing.
She's amazing.
Well, she's now one of the best on-screen Batman villains we've had, and she didn't share any scenes with Batman.
She's like in the top 3 for me. Has never met Batman.
Now they can bring her back. I was a little surprised they kept her alive at the end, but then so it was again the arc for Penguin was pretty clear for me. I'm glad they sucked landing and they went the clear direction with that. With Sophia, it didn't seem so clear cut until you get to the end, and then I went, well, yes, of course you're gonna bookend this with she winds up back in Arkham, and now she actually deserves to be there. That's wonderful. Now, I wasn't sure why her therapist was still there. I thought he quit. I thought he left. I thought it was kind of weird that he was there again.
It's Arkham.
I was also confused by that. I had like the exact same thing. I assumed that she had to die, and then when she didn't, I was like, no, of course, that's the only way you can do it. It's also the only way that he can actually, like, break her, and that she's perfectly fine with dying, but being thrown back in Arkham is, like, what she wouldn't want.
The look on her face when the helicopter propeller goes, and, like, we thought she was going to get shot, and then she turns around, and Oz isn't there, is just perfect. And also, I love the confusion that you have on first view, or at least that I had on first viewing with that, where I was like, so, like, the cops suddenly show up, and then Penguin just, like, runs off, and, like, he's a cripple, so how fast could he move? And, like, I had all these thoughts running through my head. It was like, oh, wait, he planned it. And then I'm like, I don't know how he orchestrated that as well as he did, but...
It's also weird, like, the show basically tells you what it's going to do with her, like, 20 minutes before that, and I feel like it doesn't do it in a way where it sinks in right away. So, like, it can still catch you a little off guard when it happens.
You're talking about when he goes and talks to the councilman.
The big Mayor Penguin scene, which I have a million things to say, but we can get to it later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we should get into Jason's question about comic connections. But I felt so stupid, Austin, because I really thought maybe she was going to get, Penguin would actually kill her in that scene, and it's lingering for a really long time, and I'm going, well, usually when we do this, there's going to be, like, a sound that you think is a gunshot, but then it isn't. And that is what happens, but I was so uncertain about it. I was like, this could go either way, all the way through it. And then when he goes back to the hospital and he doesn't realize that his mother is mentally gone, and he's like, look, I did it. I'm not a disappointment. I was like, oh yeah, obviously, because this was the whole plan he made with the councilman, is to get her to him so that he can take credit for taking her in, and then give the Penguin what he wants, and basically set him up for the status quo that I like in comics with the Penguin, where he's pretending to be legitimate, but he's the most crooked person there is, and he's got his standard comic empire by the end.
And what's
Just
funny
exactly
is,
what I wanted.
And what's funny is on a second watch, I completely forgot like what happens after he points the gun at her. Like I just forgot, so I was like, "Wait, I don't even remember." And
You
I
couldn't
was like,
remember if she dies or not?
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
I also kind of have that.
One thing I want to mention too in that scene, that final scene with Oz and Sophia, is he tells her, "You're going to hell," which I take as a reference to the Batman when Riddler told him he would see him in hell, referring to Arkham Asylum.
Oh,
And
I forgot about
also,
that.
everyone keeps calling him the devil.
Mhm.
I think it's messed up that he keeps.
Yes, it is. You can stop there.
Yes, I think it's
That's
messed
it. That's
up.
the review.
Yeah,
It's messed up that he.
I think it's messed up that he kills people who obviously don't want to die and lets people live who want to die.
What a good point. Yeah.
Um,
And not to be sadistic, but just because for his own purposes, it keeps winding up that way.
Yeah.
It's interesting that this Penguin is not exactly a sadist, or at least not all the time. When he's really sick of somebody that's been getting in his way, he does really enjoy watching them die. There is that. But he doesn't kill somebody just to kill somebody either. So, like, I honestly thought the most messed up scene in the show was, and I'm even pitting this against the dancing with his girlfriend and his mother's clothes thing at the end, which will haunt me even more than anything in Bates Motel. Okay, I'm right up there with a couple of things in Bates Motel. It's basically Bates Motel.
that's probably the most messed up
I mean,
thing.
at least
And
we didn't get Penguin in this monster.
And
But I thought, sorry, let me finish this thought. I thought the most messed up moment was when he lets Maroni's wife and son burn up in that fire, and then just the sadistic face he's got.
yeah.
In that bit. If you thought the Penguin is giving up all the humanity he's got in that scene with Victor at the end, you were not remembering the moment with the fire.
And then Colin Farrell is just actually a genius. Like, I don't know how he does that. It's really weird, like, watching him in interviews.
He's
because
actually
a completely different-
Clayface, in fact.
He's a completely different character, or he's a completely different person when he plays Penguin, and it is I think the best moment with him, or one of the best moments with him in this series, is after Sal Maroni dies, and he's just kind of like standing there. I think that's
Which is really funny.
one of his like best performances in the show. Actually, like his reaction to that is just really good, and he's like yelling at him, and he's dead, and then he like shoots at him. Like it's a really good scene.
I like how hilariously, in his mind, tragic that is for him in that moment, because I'm just laughing. Sal Maroni has a heart attack right in the middle of that, the train, and I'm...
Yeah, but
Which
I mean,
he does. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
well, that's just part of his whole thing. It's just that need validation. Like, no, I need to be the guy who kills Sal Maroni. I can't. This sucks. This isn't what I want. Which is just like the stuff with his mom, where he needs his mom to tell him that she's proud of him. Which is, again, it doesn't matter what she actually thinks or wants. He just needs that validation of all he wants, and he's screaming it at her after she's catatonic after the stroke of, I just need you to tell me that you're proud of me. That's all he needs. But then he gets his girlfriend to do it, so he kind of gets everything he wants.
Yeah, no, he basically delivers the Daredevil season 3 "I beat you" speech to Maroni's dead body. After he almost was killed by Maroni.
And Robert,
Clancy Brown was so good.
Robert, I love that point, because going back to Sophia for a second, that's how you know how lost she is, and how she used to be a real like we keep saying sympathetic, but like real caring person, and has lost that and is turning into it. Like, again, an Arkham kind of monster, because she does the same thing early on when she is upset that, I forget who it is, but there's somebody that gets shot. She's like, that was supposed to be mine. Like, you should have let me have that. She does exactly what Penguin does at the end with Maroni. I just had that thought.
Also, if anyone asks me what I'm scared of now, I'm going to say Clancy Brown with a golf club.
Should have done the Mr. Krabs voice. Even better.
And it basically is.
Clancy Brown fits so perfectly in this that I momentarily thought he was in the Batman, and I had to remind myself that character does not in fact appear there.
Yeah, it's funny, when he was cast, I had that where I was like, oh, I feel like he could just be in that movie. So it's awesome.
It's really impressive how this, for me, really does feel like just more of that universe. It doesn't. There's no like disconnect for me.
Yeah, even Carmine's recast, and like I'm never thinking about it like, oh, it's weird, he's a different actor now. I think it works really well for this.
And thank God, because I was somewhat confused by that actor's reasoning for not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
He said he didn't like.
I think we all were.
He said, I don't like the on-screen violence against women in the movie. It all happens off screen, and I'm like, first of all, does it?
No, there's more of it in the movie.
Yeah, and second of all, how many times do we see like specifically women being killed in this? Like, I wasn't really sure what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's a very deliberate choice that Penguin kills Vic the same way that Carmine killed all those women.
I had that too.
Now we're all the hangman.
And I also think it's deliberate. You guys tell me if I'm going too far. Sorry, Robert, I missed that.
So now we're all the hangman.
Tell me if I'm going too far when I say this. Austin, I'm so glad you mentioned that. And by the way, I hope the viewers tonight, and I'll get back to comments in a little bit, have been enjoying our 2-hour discussion on Victor's death in The Penguin. But I had the same thought, Austin, that it is a clear, deliberate choice that that's a strangulation, and also it's right next to water, and he could have drowned him. But he didn't. But he did do it right next to a lot of water, and I just
because there is like a connection to his parents, like the way he drops his ID into the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which is messed up.
Well, and then and see, when I said that, I was also thinking about, of course, the drowning of the brothers, and
true. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that.
And I think there's maybe a correlation with that also, Austin. Like, is it a deliberate choice to make it a drowning in his past when we just had the Gotham flood? Are we doing something with that? I don't know what exactly. I just think it's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess Gotham just has a lot of water issues.
Yeah, well, he is a penguin. Penguins like water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so sad we didn't get the Duckmobile at the end. He should have cracked that out for the last episode.
Now that you're there, let's segue into that in the comic stuff at large. I want to start just with Penguin
and
connections.
Animated series stuff. There's a lot of that in this.
Yes. Let me start with sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, just Penguin iconography stuff, and I picked up on a lot more of it on a second viewing. First of all, the flood thing might not be intentional. It might just be like Robert was saying, it's the Penguin, it's water. That's subterranean intentionally, and as is the drug operation being underground, and the Penguin realizing that he has this whole network connection to all of the city. There's so much Batman Returns in this, but not at all tonally. Like, this show is what Gotham really wished it was, and Gotham looks the TV show. Gotham looks just like a Burton Batman movie. It takes so much from Batman Returns, but it's all surface level, like Batman Returns. And this doesn't look like a Burton thing, but it's taking a lot of like iconography and moments and things and building it really organically into its story, all the way down to Jayson's favorite bit, which is it's just your nose.
Yeah. Also, there are so many scenes where I'm just imagining the lines that Oz says being played over a loudspeaker. Like,
I played this city! The stinking city!
I said no cilantro. And then Robert Pattinson does a little record scratch on his. It would be updated. It would be like an MP3 player instead of a CD.
A normal amount of pickles is what? Don't make no sense.
I played the stinking city like a normal amount of pickles is what?
Jayson, that's hilarious. I really enjoyed, and there have been other things that have attempted this, and I thought it was lame. I think it's just all about your attitude and the fact that the show is so well written. This is one of the best examples now of I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but a comic movie or TV show that is trying to make a thing seem more quote-unquote realistic, or like, I don't even want to say less comic booky, because it's still just like the Batman has the comic book stylized thing, as much as a lot of the books from the era that I was mentioning earlier, the crime drama Batman stuff from the late 80s, early 90s, because a lot of people have, or at least some people have complained that this is not, over the top comic book enough, because that's more of what they want for their Batman stuff. But I'm like, guys, there've been a lot of really good, relatively realistic Batman things. It's nice to see that again. So the point I'm getting to is, you don't have the Penguin through the whole show literally carrying around an umbrella and wearing top hat and tails and going wah, 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 and all of that. But the nods to those things don't feel lame, and they feel like you're... Sorry, I had to refresh my screen, and then it had the sample that said this live stream is the best, which I agree with, but... I had to get it off the screen so that I didn't look as narcissistic as the Penguin.
yeah.
And anyway,
And also, in that flashback,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about this. That lion, they didn't even have their umbrellas.
yeah.
Yeah.
And did you notice did you notice the giant umbrella light coming down from the ceiling in his girlfriend's apartment? Did
Yeah,
anybody
I saw somebody point that out.
Anybody see
I
that?
think I missed that one.
That was
No,
so distracting. That entire scene when Sophia comes in and it's this super intense. By the way, that did not go where I thought it was going to. I thought
Really
for sure
long
she
scene.
was dead. Yeah, but really effective. But I was distracted that whole time by that umbrella light. It's just all I could think about.
The show also does a good job at doing little nods or prequelitis type things without being stupid, like a Top Hat when he's watching
Yes.
that old movie with his mother. Like, oh, that you see where he gets his affinity for suits and top hats and stuff, and then he wears a similar one in the finale, a more comic booky costume. But it's not dumb or silly. It's like, no, this is a movie he watched with his mother. This is a really important
And
thing
it's-
to
I
him,
am a
and it's
little
really
sad
natural.
he didn't use an umbrella gun after we showed that in that movie.
Okay.
But
Yes, I am
He'll get it
extremely
later.
disappointed he never killed
Yeah.
anybody with an umbrella. That's my big negative. That's all I wanted for the show. He did not kill one person with an umbrella. I think they
Yeah.
can make the trick umbrellas work, even if it's something simple. Like he takes, he pulls the handle and takes like a blade out and stabs somebody. I needed
Yeah,
to
like
kill
something
somebody
that
with an
exists.
umbrella.
What
That's all
I'm
I-
hearing, Robert, is you think this is the worst show ever made.
That's exactly what I said.
yeah, no, I had a bingo card for the season finale of this, and all of the aesthetic things were correct except for the Penguin uses an umbrella as a weapon, and I was so sad.
There's no
Yeah.
reason to assume we won't get that later.
Yeah, no, I
because-
feel like we probably will.
Because to think, oh, this universe is too grounded or realistic or whatever for trick umbrellas would be to dismiss the fact that our main hero still goes around in a bat suit. You know, like it's not like we got rid of that. So
Also, Sophia's doctor has like hypnotism technology that I'm pretty sure doesn't exist. That's for flashback purposes. You know, like, there's hidden stuff in this show.
okay, so I'm gonna
yeah.
look into that because that is apparently a real thing, and I meant to read up more on it, but I saw the actual name of it, like what that thing is called, and Jason and I were so distracted by that first time around, and didn't even realize that we're talking about the long red blinking light thing that hypnotizes Sophia. I didn't even notice first time around that shows up all the way in the second episode. It was so distracting in the 7th episode or wherever it was.
The last episode.
It was the last episode? Now, I thought that was the first place it shows up, but it actually keeps creeping in.
Because it's used with his mom. His ma.
His ma.
Oh my gosh.
Oswald.
Oswald.
Well, and the most This Is Gotham thing in this show is the fact that they were using like electroshock therapy back in like 2010.
Yeah, Arkham sucks.
Like they probably still are.
Well, and we don't even have things called asylums anymore. One really minor complaint I have about this whole universe, and we already had it in the Batman, so I'm not lobbing this just at this, but I wish it was even more of an ambiguous, out of time kind of world. I have a tough time with TikTok existing in this world.
Yeah, that was distracting.
I have a hard time with it. And even just saying specifically it is 2022, I kind of wish we weren't doing that. I don't know how you could possibly be consistent with it, so I would rather just have cell phones but not bring up social media, really. Like, this does not feel like a world that has been impacted by social media the way ours has. I have a hard time buying it. And I also have stupid little quibbles when you bring up things like that, where I go, well, okay, so all the power is out in this side of town, right? And you can't run your mom's record player, and all she's complaining about, besides the heat, is that she can't have her music. So why don't you just pull out your cell phone and get a Bluetooth speaker and play your song? Like, if you're gonna show TikTok, I'm gonna start thinking about stuff like that.
It's because he's a sociopath. He doesn't actually.
You didn't want to
care.
run down the battery.
Well, Austin, I disagree with that. Well, actually, I don't know if I disagree with that. Let me ask you this question. No, because let me ask you this question. Does he go to the councilman and force him to get the power turned back on because he needs that for his overall plot, or does he do it for his mother?
I think for his overall plot.
Okay, because you're wrong if he just did that for his mom.
No, I think that is the beginning of like big public face Penguin.
Because it is important to note that he never actually really takes care of his mother. Again, it's all about perception. He just likes the idea of that, but he doesn't actually do it.
Well, okay, one thing Austin and I were talking a lot about through this whole show that we figured was a given was like, oh, well, obviously Oz's mom is going to die in the show, and then he's going to become even worse than that. Either somebody's going to kill her or he's going to kill her, depending on the circumstances. And what we get is way more messed up than that.
Yeah.
Because for me, the most hard to watch scene in this whole show is the scene when she's stuck in the bathtub. When he comes in and finds her and helps her out. That's just so raw and real, and that's the scene when she knows, like, look, I am losing my mind and I am begging you, if I'm too far gone, I want you to kill me because I don't want to live like this. And that's the one thing she wants from him, and he can't do it.
Yeah, and that felt like a setup, and they paid it off right.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's not keeping her alive for her, obviously, because she's just a prop. Sorry, Austin.
No, I was just going to say, and also in that big confrontation scene they have in the last episode, I really thought we were going to get the, like, Arkham beer bottle monocle thing. I really thought that's where they were going with that, and it wasn't. But yeah, she stabs him. But that's also a really great scene.
Oh, that whole scene is great, and
Well,
really messed up.
well, and I'm glad we're back.
You already
on
gave that
'cause it's
review,
so-
okay? Now you're just being redundant. You already.
Well, no, he said
The whole
he's really
last
messed
episode
up. Now
is
it's
messed up.
Oh, it's. Would you guys? Sorry, real quick. Would you guys agree with this? I think this has as strong of a finale as it does an opening, and it's one of the best first episodes of anything I've seen in a long time. But I was shocked by how much the quality of that last one matches it.
I have a hard time watching the finale just because of all the messed up stuff, but
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
especially that
that-
last scene.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
what
I
say
think the
too
show
much
is
about
pretty
it.
consistent throughout, but the finale is definitely one of the, I think, one of the better episodes.
I'd say the best episode is 4.
Oh, 4, yeah, 4 is definitely the best episode.
The 4 is wonderful. I guess for me, it's not really about quality. It's more 1 is just more exciting and fun. That I feel like the pilot episode maybe just has more replay value for me than the finale, which is so dour. But I mean, they're both great.
But it just pays everything off so properly. Like it's a really, tightly woven narrative.
Oh, yeah, and everything with Sophia too, because I don't see her as a complete monster at the end. I guess at least in relation to other characters, because I thought about this and I was right. I never thought for 1 second Sophia was actually gonna kill Oz's mom. Like, I get that she wanted him to suffer and was consumed by vengeance and all that, but in Sophia's mind, I never saw her going that far. And like you were talking about with that scene earlier when she's threatening to torture her, she looks genuinely shocked when Oz still won't confess to killing his brother. Like, the look on Sophia's face tells me, oh, I didn't expect this to go this far. I thought this would break him, and even I was wrong. Like, so that's how I read it.
And for the record, I might have been just not matching characters with pronouns earlier, but I wasn't talking about his mother. I was talking about when Sophia goes in with the girlfriend. I thought for sure she was going to die in that scene. I never thought she was going to kill his mom, though.
But then what makes the finale so satisfying, though, is Sophia does a lot of messed up stuff. And when he pins everything on her for the drug operation and the bomb going off, Sophia did technically do that. She did bomb a city, so yeah, she does go to Arkham for something she did, and it just works out perfectly with Maroni's body being down there and saying, oh, he was in charge of the drugs and stuff. It's so satisfying the way that all comes together.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, he spins it so that she's being, framed for some things, but at the end of the day, that is where she belongs, regardless of why she wound up there.
Yeah. That's also one of the best Oz moments is when they get bombed and he delivers that big speech about how, like, you're my boys, like, I'll do anything for my boys. And then he's like, oh, crap, there's a bomb in here, and he leaves them all to die. He doesn't
warn him.
Literally, he could just be like, oh, crap, that's a bomb, like, as he's leaving. No.
Let's finish answering the question Jayson asked 45 minutes ago, and I get to other comic book aspects. So, real quick, just finishing that thought about Penguin stuff. You gotta drop the idea of Penguin maybe eventually running for mayor. Of course, we got that in there. We didn't get Penguin stealing really any cars. I think he only drives his own car.
That's season 2.
In the second movie or the second season of this, if he doesn't steal the Batmobile, I'm gonna cry foul real hard. It's the Penguin. He's got to steal the Batmobile. It's very important.
But can we talk about his plum car for a minute? Because
it's amazing. Also, can he get a submarine in the second season? I want the submarine.
or at least the duck.
Well, the duck can come out of the submarine.
And penguins have to carry him at some point. But
and
like barely, but like not touch him. But like not touch him. Just like walk next to him and then he's just like sliding.
And after we find out that the penguin bleeds black goo.
Real quick, I want to read this. Damn Fine Cup of Coffee says Sophia felt straight out of Gotham to me. I wanted to like straight out of Compton.
Yeah.
Or the Gotham show.
So,
I'm not sure.
Well, no. I think that's what he's talking about. But the thing is, I agree with you, and that's one of the aspects that feels like, oh, that's what that show should have been. It's such an obvious point to make, but again, God, it sucks that wasted 5 years of some of our lives when we could have just had something like this in the first place.
I wanted to ask you, are there any characters that the Gotham version is better than the version in this show?
No. Well, real quick, I was going to say, I can answer that straight up.
Well, obviously, Gotham Sophia Falcone is much better.
I haven't seen those.
Vic is also way more tragic in Gotham.
I feel like Sophia is closer to what Barbara should have been, maybe. But yeah, there aren't a ton of characters that cross into both.
Yeah, because like Sophia and I think Salvatore Moroni's in there at some point.
I don't know if Sophia is. Moroni is, and
Sophia, they do Sophia in season 4.
I didn't even remember that.
Is Magpie in Gotham?
Yeah, I think.
I don't remember.
Maybe not.
So maybe Magpie.
Moroni is in Gotham.
Yeah, and they've got an okay Falcone at the start. But yeah, there's not a ton of characters that cross into both.
What I loved about Sophia's arc, though, is you just get so much variety with her. We get her taking her father's place and trying to want this. I just want to leave, but first I got to take out that Oz guy. But and that all tracked great for me. I could see people complaining like, "Oh, it never feels like she knows what she wants," or her plans keep changing. That all felt very organic. And by the end, her just burning the whole house down and the way she dresses and acts is more like a comic booky villain. It's really cool. Like that all played great for me.
No, she turns into Cruella de Vil at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way she builds is really and the way like I was talking before, the way like the camera starts becoming more handheld when she becomes more insane, and that one bit in, I think it's like episode 7 or something, when she walks into a room and they redress Arkham for that room, and she's looking around and she's like, oh, this is familiar. Like, I thought that was like really genius. But yeah.
Yeah, and then when she's in her cell and she's like ripping the wallpaper off, and it's got her father's office.
I
or no,
about
it's
that.
their room. It's
The
one
room
of those,
where her mom dies.
where her mother died. Yeah.
Cap, did you buy the scene when she sees like it's her niece or younger cousin or something, when she finds out that she's might be talking to the police and then tells her everything she did because she feels like, oh God, like I've become a monster, and like she tells this little girl everything she's done. Did that play for you? Do you remember the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can see why you're asking that. Yeah, in the moment, I remember buying it okay.
I did too.
Yeah, she's realized that she's done to that niece or whatever, that second cousin, what her father
did to her, and she's put in this precarious place where she's having a hard time not gaslighting her the same way her father did her, and she doesn't go that far. It's not the same thing, but it feels like it might go there. I can't remember what happens to her. I guess she just leaves her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she just gets put into an orphanage.
Mm-hmm. And then that story,
There's
if
a lot
she
of
ended up
orphan
talking to the police,
kids in
would
Gotham.
coincidentally corroborate Penguin's scheme in the finale. You know, if that little girl did end up talking to the police, like that all that information matches up.
All that stuff is, and I'm saying this again, messed up.
So we know that he is messed up, it is messed up, and all of that stuff is messed up.
I'm just going to tack this point on real quick because I meant to say this toward the beginning, but maybe it goes without saying, but given that Batman is not only not in the show, but even hardly referenced, it's neat if you are a big Batman person, and really even just comparing characters, to the first movie, because this comes right after that, and Batman has a very pivotal role in creating the status quo we have here. It's really neat how much of a cool comparison contrast exercise you can do between Batman and Penguin, and also between just as characters, where they come from, what they're motivated by, who they are as tragic characters, and same thing with Batman and Sophia. And good Batman villains are always in different ways a dark mirror for Batman. But I feel like this is, again, maybe it goes without saying, the best like complex dark mirror for Batman we've had with a Penguin. And of course we have a lot of time to spend with him, and to see all of that stuff. But like you get obvious contrast, like Penguin comes from nothing, and Bruce comes from one of the richest families in Gotham, and you have Batman loses his parents, and Oswald is molded by his mother, and Batman is motivated entirely by the death of his parents. Oswald is motivated entirely by at least ostensibly keeping his mother alive. He does have a tragic backstory involving family dying. He made that happen himself. He caused that, and they're also both in their way manipulators who are all about control and trying to create the world that they want around them. And and they're both selfish in their way, and also traditionally Batman uses people like the Penguin does, but arguably in more of an altruistic way. So having no Batman in the show, it's really neat how much of a contrast you have with those characters.
Well, I thought you were going where you were going to go with that was more with Sophia, with her also being raised with a rich family.
Yeah.
And idolizing.
Well, like I said, you can do the same thing on her side.
Mm-hmm. And which is why I'm all the more glad we didn't go full Thomas Wayne villain twist in that movie, just because then it would be less interesting, I think, comparing him with Carmine.
Yep.
And how those tragic backstories play out.
I still think that might have been teasing the audience a little too much, but...
No way, Jose.
In that movie, but...
Unseen Hand makes a great point. Both Oz and Bruce are influenced by a classic film they watched on the night 2 of their family members died.
Sure.
It's great, yeah.
Except with Oz, it is, this old black and white film, while for Bruce, if they were in the movie theater, probably would have been like Transformers 2.
I'm sorry, Austin, you almost got it, but you said it slightly wrong. It's Transformers
Oh, Transformers
It's
2.
Toe?
It's Beetlejuice, I think.
Beetlejuice. That was another thing. I didn't buy remotely that was 1989 or 88. I did appreciate the intentional, Tim Burton reference there.
Young Oz is really good, and young Oz's mom is really good.
Oh yeah, the young
is
mom
even
looks
better.
like they just pulled that mom out of like a time machine.
Yeah,
like when
It's
she's
crazy.
talking in that scene, you don't see her face initially. I just assumed it wasn't until you see her I was like, oh, that's a different actress. Okay.
I also felt like in the last episode when they've got that great kind of framing device, where she's being hypnotized by the doctor guy, and we use that to put the older actress in the younger scenes. I thought they were just kind of showing off when they have both of those actresses intercut between each other. It was like, you guys know how good a casting this is.
Mm-hmm.
You're just showing
yeah.
off.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we also haven't mentioned Rex Calabrese. the guy Oz was building up in that premiere, who he idolized, who we actually get to see in those flashbacks and find out that
Dude,
he
I've seen it through
almost...
twice. It didn't even occur to me that was the same guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's the one, his mom says, like, hey, could you, like, maybe kill my son Oz? He's kind of a sociopath. And he's like, yeah, sure. And then she unloads all this information on Oz in the finale. Like, I almost had you freaking killed. And I don't think that phases him. Like, again, talking earlier again about Victor's death, because we have to keep going back to that.
I'm going to change the
part
title to Victor's Death Spoilercast.
But, like, maybe part of Oz's rationalization is, well, this is what Rex would do, and I don't know if any of you disagree, but learning that Rex almost had him killed, I don't think phases his perception of him one bit.
No,
I
I
think
don't. I don't think so.
Well,
He
no,
just keeps going.
because he believes that he's got the right strategy in whatever you got to do to get where
Rex
you're going.
Rex being the one that's there was also so like maybe like 2 scenes into like the flashback stuff. I was like, there's some weird stuff going on here with Oz and his mom.
Yeah.
Am I reading into this? And then Rex shows up, and I'm like, oh no, that's 100% intentional. That original story is Oedipus Rex.
Oh, good call. I didn't think of that. Yeah, and his name's Rex, and he's at the top of the food chain, and he's
Mm-hmm.
And he's a dinosaur.
So, Rex means king. You read a book. No,
Well, and what killed Rex in this universe?
the Ice Age. Oh. Yeah, I had major reservations, and on a second viewing, it had been a while, and I did not remember the conversation that they have in the flashback that she has with Rex at the beginning of, I guess it's the last episode. I had huge reservations about her her speech in the first episode to Oz about how he's a disappointment and her life is meaningless if he doesn't rise to the top and take over everything. I remember on a second viewing, remembering that it at the end of the show, she says she's hated him all along for the death of her sons, and she seems to really care that he does well despite all of that. And I forgot about the speech that that Rex has to her about the 2 options she has in how to handle her son that killed her other boys, and one of them is to bury that and mold him, and the other one is to let him kill Oz, and she ends up almost getting him killed and then going with the first option. And so she's compartmentalized it and buried it and hasn't forgotten about it. Like, deep down she knows it, but she actually does the same thing Oz does. She pretends like things she doesn't want to be happening aren't happening. And I think that not only explains her motivation for spurring Oz on the way she does to take over the underworld, but it also makes her oh man, I've lost my train of thought. I'll think of it in a second.
Well, to that point, I was just gonna add, like,
sorry, I'm distracted because I'm actually gonna turn off screen share for a second, guys, because it is stuttering on my end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's doing that for you guys.
It is a little bit flashing.
Okay, well, you guys, you'll just have to imagine our faces. Anyway.
It's fine. No,
sorry, I'll think of it.
But the question is, like, when she decides not to go through with it and have Oz killed, like, is it out of pity or love, or is it more his ambition and his promise to her that he's going to take care of her and give her all these great things and this better life that she's always wanted?
Yeah, that can go
there's
either
certainly
way.
temptation there, because it is after he says, like, I'm going to take care of you, Ma. Like, don't worry, you're going to get everything you want. You're going to live in a sky rise, get all this jewelry, and that there is a degree of greed, I think, and I think there's a degree of greed to her character where she's like, well, this is that option for that better life, I guess I'll take it. I guess I can live with my sociopathic son. But that's why she loves and hates him. You know, it just paints a better picture of why she's so cruel and awful to him, because deep down she will always hate him for what he did.
For what he did
Yeah.
to a boys.
Oh boys. Yeah. It was messed up.
Oswald.
You didn't have to take my boys, Oswald.
No, I think that ends up being kind of the most important scene for her character. It kind of makes all of that make sense ultimately.
That was
Absolutely, it just kind of all clicks.
her Oswald is like right up there with Miss Selena
Oh yeah, you remember that
in Batman.
From-
What's it called?
from Cape Crusader, the Catwoman episode. Miss Selena. Does anybody remember that show?
Yeah, that was a good show.
It's been a while.
Very
Alright.
different penguin.
Oswalda.
She was the mom in that one. That was the alternate universe. That was the jumping off point. Was that the mom became Penguin instead of Oz?
Oh, that's the Elseworlds version.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I
It's
mean,
all
that whole
connected.
show is Elseworld, but
Yeah, that's why Matt Reeves produced it. He was like, "This is going to be like my what if show."
Let me get back to super chats here. Dan Schneider, $2 super chat. Talk about the Freudian aspect. Ha ha ha. I don't know if we have much else to say about that.
It's very creepy,
it's messed
but
up.
Okay, so his relationship with Eve Carlo, little Clayface reference.
well, just is Clayface.
It is
My
Clay,
mind.
like we see her perform, but in
She's
her
got all the
scene-
wigs.
She got all the wigs, her disguises. But when she has that scene with Sophia, she's talking about the roles she performs for different men. So my question to you guys is, when we get that reveal at the end, do you think this is the first time she's worn his mother's dress and done that performance for him, or do you think this is a regular thing for him and we're just seeing it for the first time? How did you guys read that?
I guess that could also go either way. I assumed it was the first time.
I think it's the first time because he has his mom.
Yeah, like I read it as that's how he's keeping her alive in his mind. Or it's possible, yeah, it could go either way, because it's also possible that that's peeling the curtain back and just showing us more how out there he is, and how
Because I think
really
it matters that
obsessed
is
he's always
Eve.
been
It's
with
not just
her.
another.
Say again?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that is Eve. That's not just some others,
Mhm.
escort or sex worker. Like, this is somebody he's had a long relationship wherein, I mean, she went with it.
Well, and that
so
he's,
I don't know.
he is literally, or at least in his mind, literally dating his mother. Like, that's really.
He's made her
what
his
he
queen.
wants.
Yeah, I could see it going either way. If they've done that before, it might not be specifically that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's. I saw. I forget who it was that mentioned this, but one of the interviews I watched today, talking to, I think, the guy who plays Victor, the interviewer made a good point and suggested that it's kind of a classic mobster, especially like Italian mobster trope, to have a guy who's obsessed with his mother like that we've just taken it to the nines.
Mhm.
That
It's a classic Italian thing. Yeah.
that's always, I do all these horrible things, but I'm proving that I have a code because I care about my mother. And the Penguin, as we explore in the show, has no code and doesn't even really care about his mother.
What the heck is this? Talking about Boyds?
John, do you have anything to add to that? At some point.
To that specifically.
Well, I got distracted because I saw John's cat in the background, and I was fighting really hard not to say just the we've been looking for, but
There
I
was a child present.
like, don't say it,
Austin.
don't say it, don't say it.
He saw a lot
Don't
worse
say it, don't think it.
in the show we're reviewing, I must say.
Yeah.
She claims she's your half sister.
Yeah, that struck me as just a nod to tie it back to the Batman.
Yeah, and set up for the second one, I assume.
Yeah, like that might become like clear later as to why now, but that seemed like kind of an odd time for that, where it was like, I don't know why Selena didn't send her a message when she was in Arkham before, or why she didn't send her a message being out of Arkham. Like, why now?
And the end of it is very much tying it back to the Batman with that and the Bat Signal.
Yeah, which was a choice I liked a lot better on the second viewing.
Yeah.
We should talk about, I don't know why I've waited this long to bring this up, the elephant in the room of all of these really important things are happening with the criminal underworld, and Batman is nowhere to be found, and people are complaining about that. I have reservations about it, but we should talk about that. But I like the Bat Signal thing a lot better on a second viewing. The Selena thing seemed just kind of tacked on.
Yeah.
Well, I read it as though now that the entire Falcone family has been wiped out, and now that Sophia's all who's left, that may have been what.
Oh, maybe so.
Gave Selena the idea to actually reach out to her and attempt a connection.
I would
Now
have
that she's changed her name to Gigante, like maybe she's like, oh, there's something here. I don't know.
Yeah.
She doesn't
But again,
even
she-
like her effing name.
That's so great. Yeah, we haven't really talked so much about levity, but one of the things that keeps this, I mean, not light, obviously, but where it's still fun, even with all the really dark, messed up things that are happening, as we keep saying, is the Penguin, like Oz never loses that sarcastic wit that he's got in the Batman, and there's always at least 2 or 3 like big memorable moments like that in each episode. They don't overdo it. They really easily could have.
No, my favorite one is, it's like episode 2, I want to say, when he's having a conversation with Sophia, and they're walking down a hallway, and she's like fast walking. He's like, "What are we doing? Running a marathon?" Like, he's like, "I got a limp."
No, the Penguin is maybe the most relatable character I've ever seen in fiction, because he both wants more pickles and doesn't want cilantro. When like, that
And he
pickle
knows the
has
difference
our-
between L and Law.
Yeah. Which also like kind of ties back into this, in that
He speaks Spanish.
The landlord that watches his mom is Spanish, and like we like have a connection where he speaks Spanish with him.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that was smart.
Hmm.
I mean, the pickle speech was just true.
Yeah, I've said that a million times, and I also hate cilantro with like a burning passion. So I was like, oh, this is just me. I am the Penguin.
But what I love about stuff like that, particularly the pickles one, and yes, I'm gonna analyze this for story for a second. One of the things I really appreciate about some of those kind of one-off sarcastic comments is, yes, they're funny, and yes, they're very in character for him, but they sometimes speak to the kind of greater like poor guy born to nothing, down on his luck, and using that to manipulate people things. So like he has these aspirations to be looked at as the guy that actually takes care of his employees, that cares about people, that pays them what they're worth. When he complains about bad service at a restaurant, that's playing into all of that.
Oh, and he does that multiple times, because he has that whole thing with the waiter with the stutter. He just
Oh
doesn't-
yeah, when he tells Victor like take up space.
Yeah.
And then also gets mad at him for stuttering later on in that
In
episode.
that same
Yep.
episode, because he's
Which is great. Well, it's different when it's getting in his way, you know.
yeah.
Yep.
Which, like, you don't notice the first time around. Like, all this, like, stuff where it's like, oh, well, he's just, like, under this, like, you know, under a lot of stress. And then by the end, you're just like, yeah, he's just kind of full of himself.
I saw people, a couple people complaining in the comments earlier that Oz has, in some places, too much plot armor. Do you guys agree with that?
No, I
Not
didn't
really.
have
I don't know. I
that
never really. Sorry,
because
John.
I always thought that he talked his way out of it, which is what I like about the character.
He also doesn't always win.
Yeah.
And he causes a lot of problems for himself.
That keeps the story moving. I think the fact that he doesn't have plot armor is what's keeping the story moving.
But there are places where he kind of gets maybe lucky when, like, you know, bullets are flying his way that he doesn't take one and things like that.
Sure.
Well, and there's lots of situations though, like with the bomb, where you could, if you were CinemaSins, you could say, well, why did Sophia leave such a long timer on the bomb? It's like, well, it's because she wants him to suffer. She wants him to see the bomb and potentially get out, or if he dies, then whatever. But she wants him to suffer. So that's why situations like that happen the way they do. But I don't know. I don't think he has any more plot armor than Batman does in any Batman story. It's just
exactly.
Not even just in this universe, in the Batman, when he during the suit scene, he collides with a metal pole and is fine.
Yeah.
He gets shotgunned in the chest.
Yeah.
No. I also really like that in order to survive the bomb, he has to get behind the storm drain that he killed his brothers with.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that until second viewing. I was like, what?
Did you know Colin Farrell's favorite Batman movie is Batman Forever?
That's great.
Yay.
I didn't
Also,
know that.
same with Christina Milioti, because she talked about that. Like, she loved Batman Forever when she was a kid, and said she always wanted to be a Batman villain.
Yeah.
So it sucks that she
Yeah.
didn't. But maybe she will. Get the
She's
chance
going to be.
become a
She's going to be the main villain of the Batman too.
Austin, don't say things like that matter-of-factly. Someone will believe you.
Well, I just need her and Pattinson to eye act off of each other because they're like the best eye actors in the business right
That's
now.
all you'll get, too. You'll get one scene where he has to walk through Arkham Asylum, and they'll meet eyes, and that's all you'll get from her.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm rehabilitated.
Tomorrow there will be like a dozen articles. Random guy on YouTube says that Sophia Falcone is going to be the main villain of the Batman.
Sources tell me.
He was
Well,
wearing
and
a
then I'm
Spider-Man
gonna-
shirt on a Batman review. It must be true.
And then I'm gonna call my mom and be like, "Look, Ma, I finally made it.
Come on.
Good job, Austin!
Tell me you're proud of me.
I'm getting YouTuber money. I'm gonna buy a home for you, Ma."
Austin.
Good, you gotta make up for killing your brothers.
Austin is just the Penguin.
Every time Austin tells you about his brother, he always refers to him as his one brother, which suggests that he killed all the other ones.
I mean, some people would be happy if their brothers died.
Yeah, there's some great foreshadowing for that, right? Did you guys...
And for Sophia not actually being the hangman, like there's that part where Vic's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, she's the hangman," and Oz is like, "Don't believe everything you read in the paper, kid."
Yeah, did you guys call that, like, when we get to the big flashback, were there enough clues where you're already like, well, yes, of course he killed his brothers?
Yeah, it was. Oh, no, that
That caught me off guard. I wasn't.
Yeah, that
I
caught me off
probably
guard.
should have been expecting it, but I wasn't.
Yeah, with the Sophia thing by like episode 2, I was like, oh, I don't think she's the hangman.
Yeah, me too.
I think her father, because I was remembering the Batman and Falcone's thing for strangling women in that movie. That I was like, oh, he's probably the hangman. Okay.
Otherwise, she
with
just
Oz-
gets it from her dad, which is very odd.
Yeah.
But
This
yeah,
is genetic.
Oswald.
Oswald.
But yeah, it's hinted at super early on that, you know, his brothers are dead, and we were kind of waiting for that. Because I remember us talking, like, around, like, mid through the season, like, when are we going to get to those flashbacks why are we holding off on that? And then it's like, oh, that's why, because you can't know until that late that, oh, he caused his brother's death. He is that far gone. He's that much of a sociopath.
Yeah,
it's important that we hold off on that.
I was going to say, that's a structure thing that I sometimes resist, that this just really pulls off well. Because, first of all, Austin, it is kind of that TV streaming miniseries thing of, we've got to do the big flashback reveal episode second to last. Like, it is doing that.
And they have to get the actual costume at the end.
Right.
There are a couple, like, Disney Plus things that are in this. They're just done well.
It just seems right for the story they're telling. The thing that I typically resist about it is, I don't like my protagonist usually to know too much that I don't know, because it means that I'm not in that character's head, and it's harder to sympathize with that character or to trust the writing, right? So when you start dropping stuff on me right toward the end, it feels like a plot twist for the sake of a plot twist, and I realized that I don't actually know this character as well as I thought I did. They've been keeping really massive information from me. What I like about it in this instance is, and it's not just because the Penguin is a bad guy. There's almost this fun meta component to it where, for me, where Oz is keeping secrets from everybody. He's lying to everybody. He's keeping everybody at arm's length, including you, like including the audience. So you think you know this character better than you do, and then we're allowed to know right before it's really going to matter for the story that, and like, did it have to be done in a flashback? It was handled so. It was executed so well. I was ultimately glad that it was. It might have, because I don't know. You guys know me. I'm kind of a stickler for staying away from flashbacks whenever possible, and to keep things in scene as much as we can. Although that was kept pretty well in scene. We've got pretty good excuses for jumping back when we do.
And I really like when they kind of do a flashback in the scene with where they have his mom, like, the later actor being in the flashback because she's reliving it.
Right.
Like, I think that's just good writing.
But what really works about it is, again, sorry, I'm trying to remember where I was going with all that.
I mean, yeah, I think in an odd way it just helps you get into the character's head.
Well, what I was going to say is,
you fully understand what he is.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Is he's been this way almost his whole life, and I think we sympathize with him, or more importantly, just have more fun watching him before we realize just how evil he is. And I'll use this to segue into this point. I'm actually, and I'm sure these guys can pull it off, but I'm actually really resisting the notion of a second season of this.
Me too. Especially with the ending, like,
because I don't know that I want to spend a whole other 8 episodes with this guy now that he's shown his true colors as hard as he does at the end of this. Like, I'm sure there's more, cool character study you can do with him. Like, the first thing that comes to my mind is you reverse the rags to riches story, right? You do, like, Rocky 4 with it or something, or is it 5? I hate Rocky 5, but where he loses all of his money. You have him, you'll fall from grace. That's the best thing I can come up with, because I'm kind of worried that the whole point of this is not to see this character like change and grow and go through an arc, but for us in watching him to realize just how horrible of a person he really is when you get to the end of it. What else is there to say about him as a protagonist is my worry.
I feel like it might be forced to be a second season and to, like, bring people out from, where they left off at the end of the first season. And, like, I feel like they could do it to, like, force to even do anything with a second season.
And don't get me wrong, I loved this. A case can be made, I'm sure, but that's my reservation.
So I think... Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, thanks. So, they haven't officially announced a season 2 yet, though they were talking about it as it was airing. I guess the main reason why that's been on hold or not officially announced is just because now that the movie's been delayed. So if we get a second season, I don't think it'll be until after the Batman 2 comes out.
Yeah.
And so for me, it just depends on how this character is used in that movie.
Just what the Gotham status quo is, too, after that
right.
movie.
Because to me, the obvious thing to do is after the Batman 2 is, if you did a second season of this, would be the Penguin runs for mayor season up against Bella Real. I might prefer that as a season of television than just a subplot, in a movie. And especially if we got to get inside her head more and actually see more of her, because, she's a very minor character in that first movie. He gets a couple cameos here, but if we saw more of her perspective and learn more about her, that could be interesting. And I don't know, just Penguin for mayor is something I think you could flesh out over 8 episodes. And I'd also say, okay, then you have to have Batman show up at least for 1 episode.
Yeah.
Like, I was cool with that here, and their excuses, well, he's busy, there's a lot going on. I can roll with that. That flood just happened a couple weeks ago, so it's a big city. I get it. But if you do a second season, Batman has to show up at some point.
Yeah.
And it could be really cool, because what I've always wanted in one of these shows, and I've still never gotten, is kind of like what they did in that sequence in that Suicide Squad game, where it's a Batman attack sequence from the Thug's perspective. That's something we've never really done, like, in television, that I think could be really cool. So it's not something I'm, like, asking for. I'm just anxious for the Batman 2, and I want to see how that turns out first. But I think there's potential for a second season. But where do you land on that, Austin?
You basically said everything that I was going to say, except I don't think Bella Real makes it out of the second movie. I have a whole thing based on the mayor setup in this that I think is like the dead giveaway for what they're gonna do, but we'll see.
Well, go ahead and explain that to us, Austin.
So Penguin goes into the mayor's office, and you have this is where the mayor sits, this is where all the counselors or whatever sit, and
he says, the gavel works.
Exactly. And all around this room, overlooking everyone that runs the city, are giant owl curtains that loop all around ominously over the room. And I am fully set on the Court of the Owls will not I think there will be another villain like the Riddler that is the main villain. But I think the Court of the Owls will be the big, kind of like Carmine Falcone, the one that ties everything together in that second film. And I think Bella Real will be a plant for them to take the city back from the criminals, because one of the big things in that movie is that she wants to get Bruce to come and help in and get the rich people to help save the city. I think she's going to be their kind of face that we get in that movie.
Oh.
And I think she will be a villain, and a big Bruce moment will be, this person I thought was here to fix the city is not, and I can't even trust the good people in this city. That's my theory.
You're selling me on the Court of Owls.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah,
you might
and I
something there.
did not care about Court of the Owls in this until, for some reason, that all clicked in that scene, and I was like, you know what? I could be interested in that. They could win me over.
Especially with Matt Reeves now referring to his universe as the Batman crime saga, that.
Yeah, because he keeps saying that, and I'm like, you just got rid of most of the criminals. It's the epic crime saga. Everybody's dead.
Yeah.
That's why I call it the universe.
Oh my God! So many things came to me when you said that, Austin. That's a really smart call, and you could be totally right about it. Did anybody else notice the name drop of the Elliott Bridge?
Yes.
Oh yeah, and Elliott was referenced in the first movie.
Because I think they'll keep bringing that up, and your main villain, if you're right about Court of the Owls, along with Court of the Owls, could end up being Hush in your sequel.
But it could also be the end game, because they reference Hush a lot in that first film. There's also a lot of Hush in the Riddler. There's also a little bit of Hush in the Penguin in this. That's definitely a villain that they're fans of.
So it might be that they've just spread Hush across all these other characters, and they'll never actually use him. But Elliot could just be a nod to that, and we never actually do anything with Elliot. But it seems like that's a really important, prominent family. and I kind of expect this to do more stuff with that. Man, there's just a bunch of stuff I want to bring up. Earlier we were talking about comic connections, and we didn't get to the rest of that, but every name of a crime family or a gang in this is comic book. There are some that I was a little bit surprised not to get. We got the Low Boys from No Man's Land, but not the Street Demons. Maybe that just sounds too 90s for them. I don't know. Like I said, Elliot is name dropped. That's not a crime family, but I
get Summer Gleason.
I was surprised not to get Sionis yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Black Mask, I have speculated could be in the second one.
I was gonna say I really want Black Mask.
Because the Triads are a major comic gang. I think that also maybe features in No Man's Land. I can't remember right now.
They also have one of the, and it's like glanced over, but I think one of the darkest or like most messed up things in this show, which is that the like main guy of the Triads, his family was kicked out of Taiwan by China, came to Gotham, became a gang, and then they were forced to run Chinatown and couldn't leave.
That is pretty messed
Also,
up.
that guy from Lost is awesome.
Yeah, I was really excited to see him in this. I forget his name. That's an actor I like a lot.
He's the guy that goes in Lost. He's the guy that goes, I like country.
Yeah, that's the guy that runs the Dharma Initiative, and then he was Shredder in Ninja Turtles 2, and he was a very funny character in Amazon's Tick. He was the guy obsessed with feet.
I actually didn't know he was Shredder. Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of his first major credits.
Can I throw out a couple of references that I caught?
Yeah.
Well, one was Dr. Ventress, because we mentioned Magpie in the Arkham episode. There's also like the jerk doctor there. That's a reference to Floyd Ventress, like a really minor Batman villain from the old comics.
Rex Calabrese is one too.
Rex is one, and yeah, that Floyd, the Floyd Ventress, he was loosely adapted in the animated series, the Invisible Man episode. He's like Lloyd Ventrix in that, but they did that a lot in that show, and there's a lot of DTAS in this. Even his suit at the end reminded me of the animated series Penguin suit, and also the big one that I was like, oh my god, in that episode was Summer Gleason from Batman the Animated Series, who was really cool to see her in live action, and then she didn't last long, but it was nice to see her.
Yeah, they're throwing away all the important characters.
The drug addict cop we mentioned earlier is comic book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And interestingly and hilariously, Gigante I don't think is comic book, but there is a crime family called Gelante. So they took out the L and they put in a G for some reason.
I want to say Gigante, that last name is in like Long Halloween or Dark.
Oh, yeah, is it really? That might just be a coincidence then.
I thought that
yeah,
was
I don't
like
think we do that with
cousin.
Sophia. Yeah, I think we do it with like one of the cousins. Oh, because he's in this. He's the bald guy. That's like the main one we deal with.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the first one that dies in Long Halloween.
And that's an actor I'm really familiar with too. He's in House of Cards, and he's.
I can't remember what I've seen him in.
He's in Man of Steel for 5 seconds. And...
Yeah, he's in like a ton of stuff. He's one of those character actors. I also can't decide if the squid is a reference to Sid the Squid, but I want him to be.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, there is another old minor Batman villain called the Squid or something that he's actually supposed to be referenced
It's all
to.
one character.
I choose to think, yeah, they're all connected. All the Squid. I saw it as
the Squid universe.
Yeah.
We're just living in it.
Well, they're obsessed with animated series, so...
Again, we killed Sid the Squid. They're taking away all of these important characters.
And Wikipedia says that she is also known as Sophia Gigante in the comics.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember that.
In some things. So.
Well, there's Gigantes and Gelantes. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, maybe she married and became a Gigante in the comics or something like that. Or got that name. I'm not sure.
I don't
We
know.
killed
I haven't
Leone
actually.
before he could make Two-Face.
I haven't actually read Dark Victory,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah, well, and it's not very good, unfortunately. But But yeah, I like all the identity stuff with her, and she's throwing away that name to try to, sort of like the Penguin, just create a very specific reputation for herself and separate herself from her terrible, murderous father that everyone thought was her for 10 years.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I like that what she wants kind of evolves from the show. She goes from avenging her brother to, well, I want to take over everything and run things my way, to I actually just want to burn the whole thing down and leave. Like that all totally tracked for me.
She's kind of like Penguin in Dark Knight, or not Dark Knight, Batman Returns, not Dark Knight Returns. Just like written a little bit better. There's more.
She's got all these different motivations, but I know why. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't have that as much last time we watched it for the rewind.
No,
but
that's true. Fair
it
enough.
is better than it is handled even in that, though. Even then.
I'll also tackle on that I like the way the theme of family is handled in this, and how twisted and perverted that gets, where whenever any like crime family person in this is talking about family, they are not talking about that in the same way that a person with a regular person with a spouse or children would be talking about family, and that's a word we throw around to kind of couch like selfishness and greed, and to pretend like we're like caring people, and
I
so
mean, that's
kind of
this whole thing in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just sad how similar a lot of these characters actually get to the Penguin. Like, how many people, Austin, are closer to that side on the chart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Nicholas Bodo in the live chat was paralleling like Penguin with Carmine Falcone and their lack of empathy and just how manipulative they are, and just that whole facade, because they're both just complete monsters.
Yeah, and Oz in the Batman seems to have some degree of respect for him, or at least wants to be like him.
But he also doesn't care about him.
Well, yeah, exactly, because everything's superficial. Okay, let me hit Super Chat. Stan Schneider, this was from a million years ago, but he says Jesse was going to be killed by Tuco. I forgot about that. I think I have heard that. Which makes sense, because it was kind of hard to believe how in the world they would get out of that situation first time around while you're watching it, where you're just like, well, they're both dead. That's the end of that. I hope they enjoyed their taco. That is going to be their last meal. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 Super Chat. People say this show was written so that fans would not be able to defend or excuse him like they do with similar shows, Breaking Bad, Sopranos, etc.
I'm sorry. We're sorry for cutting your head off, Austin.
Yeah, we keep knocking Austin's head off every time I put up a super chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's like a criticism or, but I don't know.
I don't even know if that was like the mission statement of the show. It's just refreshing that we let the protagonist be a true sociopath, who you just can't empathize with anymore by the end.
Yeah, now, to Breaking Bad's credit, I'll say we can compare apples to apples here, and I think most of us would agree that Walter White, that have seen that show, is a more, like, in comparison, like, real caring, feeling person than the Penguin, where, like, Walter doesn't start as a sociopath from the beginning. You're also talking about, like, very different upbringings and that kind of thing. And also opposite shows, in that Breaking Bad is a show about change, and this is a show about a character who refuses to, which is interesting, because that's what we usually do with Batman, and the Batman has our first real honest-to-God, complete 180 character arc for Batman in a big screen movie, and this is more traditional Batman character arc, but, twisted and horrible, because it's the Penguin. But anyway, I would argue that when you get to the end of Breaking Bad, you have a completely terrible, unsympathetic character that is almost as as selfish as the Penguin is here, where when he says that he originally says he did everything for his family, and he admits when you get to the end that no, he did it because he liked it. And I don't think we're that far away from this when we get to the end of Breaking Bad. They just start from very different places, and the Penguin is a monster for much, much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Now we need the Harvey Dent Better Call Saul.
Yay!
Which Matt Reeves has basically come out and said like they want to do that. So I feel like if we get another spin-off, that's probably the next one.
I want to talk. We should start wrapping up pretty soon. We've been at this a couple hours. I want to talk. We've alluded to this about reservations that folks have about Batman not showing up and not feeling prompted to deal with any of this. I will say this is a really easy show to watch in a vacuum, even though it is so well connected to the previous material that it's really easy to not even think about Batman through a lot of it, and to just immerse yourself in the narrative that we have. In looking at the grander world and imagining what Batman is doing, for me, all bets are off until we get to the next movie. If we say he just wasn't paying attention, I'm going to cry foul on that. What I'm hoping happens is that we have a really good excuse for him being completely out of the city. That's where I hope we're going with that, especially because there's so much no man's land here that's what happens with No Man's Land when you've got a power vacuum and all these gangs vying for power. Batman just gets out of Dodge for a few months, and when he comes back, there's complete and utter chaos. I think there is a really good excuse to actually write Batman out for a little bit, because he has finally decided who he wants to be and found himself, and he is probably blaming himself to at least some degree for the flood at the end of that movie. If he leaves to regroup and maybe even train some more, I would totally buy that. I just think that the events of this are too major for him not to have any response to. So I actually agree with that criticism, but I think it's really easy to come back and give us a good reason that he doesn't show up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be he gets out of Gotham. I think you can possibly write some other reason for it, but at the very least, Bruce Wayne's paying attention to the news, and he hears all of the Falcones die of a gas leak, and he's not looking into it. I have a tough time with that.
So I think if they do some sort of he has to leave for whatever reason, I do think it makes the ending of that first movie worse.
Yeah.
I just think it's
well, I haven't seen it in a while.
It's very hand wavy. If Batman showed up in the show, I'd be that's fine. I do think it doesn't bother me that he doesn't, because again, the flood just happened. A lot of the city was destroyed, and the big thing that Bruce has at the end of that movie is, oh, I can't just be about going out and beating people up. I have to actually help people. I think he is more concerned about saving those parts of the city, especially because we're in one little small block, but I can't imagine it's the only spot that's without power and whatnot. I feel like there's probably even worse areas that were hit, because that's just one of the bombs, and there's at least 6 that go off when the flooding happens. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I think they're also going to make a big point that he has to be Bruce Wayne to help the city now as well. So he also has to completely redefine himself in that way as well. And we also know from, I think, episode 1 or 2, that crime is up 60% or something crazy like that. I feel like there are enough little pieces that it gives you that I can buy that Batman doesn't show up in this. The only one that I went, okay, this is too big, Batman would show up, is when Sophia bombs the city, but it happens that morning and she's arrested that night. There's no point where he could have even interfered. The gas leak thing, like, I don't know. I feel like Bruce Wayne probably sees that and is like, oh, like, that's so not even on the top list of priorities right now. Like, all the Falcones just died. Like, okay.
I just don't agree with that.
I guess.
I have a tough time with a Batman that does not investigate that.
Right now, I just take the showrunner's word for it that he's busy. I just need to see the second movie to get better context for that.
That's
but
where I'm at.
There's a lot going on.
But I need it to not be too hand-waved. Like, Austin, I'm sorry, I'm just not totally with you on it.
I just think, like, so you have, like, the major crime family, and they just all died, like, in the middle of, like, a giant national, like, emergency, like, across the entire city. Like, I don't know that Batman necessarily has to drop everything to look into that.
Well,
I would be fine if he did, but, like, I don't think I necessarily need that to be the case.
I will say,
but this is a detective Batman, and he's going to be looking at the larger picture. I just feel like two things can be true at the same time. I feel like he can be, and it's tough because he's so new and green that, admittedly, I'm basing this. I'm having a hard time not basing this somewhat on what a, like, typical experienced Batman would do. But even this guy, I'm struggling with the idea that he is not paying attention to what's happening in the city, even while he's helping people on the ground below. Hold on, even while he's helping people on the ground below, and sorry, you're just gonna make me lose my train of thought. And which I've already done, so go ahead.
No, there's a major difference between not having any awareness of what's happening and not being directly involved.
Yeah, I know, but I'm telling he'd look into it. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know,
I just need to know if something else happened that night that took his attention away from it.
I think it's a bigger issue that he's never mentioned. There's never a moment where they're like, "Oh, this guy took out Falcone." I think that's the bigger issue.
I think there should be more discussion amongst the criminals of, like, what if the freaking Bat shows up, when they're working on their operations. I do wish he was mentioned more, but then stuff like the bomb going off, again, I wish he was mentioned or if it was addressed more. But right now I can headcanon, like, well, he's probably helping, if Batman's in that area, he's probably helping survivors after that bomb. And then, like Austin said, Sophia's arrested that night. So it's like Batman could be involved there, and we're just not seeing it. I agree that it's better to have an explanation to know.
Here's the thing. I would buy into what you guys were saying a lot more if a few weeks ago he wasn't really heavily already having to investigate some of the people we're talking about. Like, he was already in that world looking at that stuff. I feel like he knows too much about it to not be like, oh crap, all the Falcones died. That's suspicious. That's pretty weird. Tyler says, how do we know he wasn't looking into it? I mean, maybe he was. It's just weird that he doesn't show up at all, if he is.
And it makes... But
I also...
And I will say, it is one of the things that kind of held me back when you were asking, like, does this feel connected to the Batman? Because that very much makes it feel like its own thing, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but it is kind of weird because, like, Batman's not there, so it just doesn't feel like it's in the same universe at some points.
The story is a lot grander than I expected.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and I guess it just depends on how you look at that, because, like, I feel like this is very small potatoes in the grand scheme of what's actually happening in the city. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, see, I don't at all.
Well, we don't see what's happening in the city in the show. Like, we don't really see a lot of the after effects of the events in the Batman.
Yeah, well, we're only in one.
In terms of, like, again, we're only in one, like, little block, but, like, we do see how bad it is there.
And to Austin's point, like, maybe he's swung too far the other direction, and this could be a part of the Batman 2, I don't know, but his epiphany of, oh my god, I was too focused on beating up criminals, I need to be a symbol of hope, I need to be helping people, maybe he has swung too far the other way, where
he's just not looking at the bigger picture. Right
now he's just focused on the people and helping and not looking at, so I don't know, it just depends on where he's at in that second movie.
I think the bat signal was just broken until the end of the Penguin, so he couldn't be called to help for anything.
And I loved that final shot. I thought it was perfect. I wanted Batman to show up in the show. He didn't. But that final like bit of Penguin getting everything he wants, but then there's the bat signal. He's screwed. I thought that was great.
And I didn't need Batman in this at all. It's just with the story they told. I'm hoping that when we get into the next one, there's a better explanation than just he was busy. Because Austin and I are gonna have to agree to disagree on this. I just don't quite buy that. But also, Austin, you and I are looking at it differently because I mean, it's you've got a really corrupt government that's so in bed with the criminal underworld in this that it didn't feel very small potatoes, regardless of how small of an area we're dealing with. But also,
in terms of like,
I mean, we're in Crown Point for most of this too.
It's not like bleeding out into the city as much. Like, it's not like, you know, like mobsters are going around like shooting up like entire sections of the city. That's all I mean by like it's not super grand. Like, in terms of,
but Batman would understand how big of a deal it is that all the Falcones died.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he wouldn't, but also like, I don't know, the entire city is like half destroyed, and like the one major crime family just all and like wound up dead. Like that's bad, but like there is bigger fish to fry, I think.
Yeah, and also somebody mentioned in the live chat that, I mean, Alfred's still in hospital, so he's down in LA. You know.
Well, also, I'm looking at this as such an interesting mirror for Batman with the Penguin, and he's 3 steps ahead. So I need my Batman to also be 3 steps ahead. That's part of it for me, also.
And
but
how much are they allowed to change with how the Batman 2 plays out? Like, how much are they allowed to make it like a main thing, like the writers?
Well, I mean, they're working directly with Matt Reeves, who's writing the sequel. So, but Austin, the other thing I was going to mention is you're again, we just have different perspectives because you're saying like it's a 1 block radius. My Batman lore begins with 89, where all the important things are in 1 block in the first place. So I don't think of Gotham as that large of a city, really.
Cap, we've updated. Gotham can be bigger.
Oh, is that really?
Gotham is like the blob; it just keeps expanding.
Exactly. With every iteration, it gets bigger. Eventually, we will have Planet Gotham. It'll be the entire world.
Oh dear God, it's growing bigger.
Bob the Hun, even before anything crazy happens, the power vacuum and gangsters fighting for the top would be something Batman and Gordon are concerned with and trying to defuse. Yeah, maybe the bigger question is, where's Gordon through all of this?
Yeah, Gordon, I
He
think,
got eaten by Gotham.
could have shown up, especially by
He's hanging out at any one of the number of businesses in that 1 block important radius.
The church.
Yeah, because the other important thing is that it's not like there is a power vacuum, but it's not so much like everybody's fighting for the top. It's everybody's just kind of like out of step and trying to figure out what to do next. Like it's not like, oh, you know, we're all going to be killing each other to get to this point to see who the new Carmine Falcone is. Everyone's just like, okay, what do we do now? Like, what do we do with our drug operations? Like, they were partly destroyed. Like, everybody's just kind of floundering right now.
Well, and if Batman is on the streets, to your point, Austin, he's going to notice this new drug.
Yeah, so he would probably have to like start from the bottom with that too.
I think
like,
maybe he'd start tracking that and trying to figure out where it came from.
It's like there is like also the possibility that Batman's like always like around and we just don't see it. Like who knows? Like it's so.
I'd love to see the background of that.
Yeah, I wonder how much of like the events of this, if any, happen in the Batman 2.
Batman's freaking out. He's like, "Oh my god! Like I gotta repair this part of the city. I gotta do like this and this and this. Now there's a new drug." And then Gordon's like, "Don't worry about it, man. We got this."
I will say, I think they're going to have to be really careful. Tell me if you guys agree with this. To make the sequel as watchable on its own without seeing this as possible, because this is much harder material than the
So
first
I
movie was.
think-
And if the sequel is still PG-13, they're just going to have to really strategize and make sure that you don't have to see this, because even not just the kid thing, this show will not be for everybody and will be like more intense than some. Like, my wife would not watch a show like this, but she loved the Batman. So like you can't make the sequel too contingent on this, even though I'd love to see a sequence where we see like what Batman's been doing during all of this.
So I think how they will play it is just you can watch it either way, or like like you can watch it, don't watch it, whatever. Penguin will show up for like 5 or 6 scenes, which I think Matt Reeves at this point has confirmed for that sequel. But I think it will be, it almost in that weird way has that like Falcon and Winter Soldier thing, right? Where it's like, what do you miss if you didn't see that show? Well, he accepted the Captain America role. That's also what we saw last time. Not exactly with this, but in the sense that. Next time you see Penguin, like, oh, he's taken over the crime family, he was the next person under Falcone. If you don't see the show, like, you just go, oh, yeah, like, that makes sense. He was the next one. So I do think it works both ways in that sense.
Yeah, I think the stuff with Penguin will play great for both audiences, where it'll feel like a very natural continuation of that movie, because that's where we leave that movie, foreshadowing with him, like Austin just said. But also, if you get the show, then you get a much deeper understanding of the character and a more richer story. So I think it plays for both. The bigger question is if Sophia is in the movie, like, and how much of that baggage you explain. I'm 50-50 on that. It just depends on what we do with Selena, and I don't know if Sophia is going to be in that second movie or not. But if she
If we are, we
that is a
probably
logical
combine
question.
them, and then it would probably be easier to play that where you have Selena and Bruce to kind of explain her like basic motivation, like kind of stuff. Like you can get it out a little bit easier because you're explaining it to new people.
I don't think she will be. I think it's a lot more likely that they'll greenlight some other project for TV that gets her back in it. And you guys were talking earlier about the idea of a second season exploring the Mayor Penguin stuff, which, yes, you're right, that'd be the other way to go. But I also don't see why that couldn't be part of a Gotham PD show or an Arkham show or some connection or something that connects both of those. Like, I'd love to see the Penguin now as a major supporting character in a larger, like, 8-10 episode narrative that's not just focused on him, instead of doing a second season of this. I meant to say that earlier. But I think, back to the Sophia thing, it's a lot more likely she'll be in another TV show.
Yeah, and I mean, we could do a Jonathan Crane Arkham show where, like, he's the Doctor.
I love that.
I'd watch that. I know there was talk of the Doctor in this being Crane. I'm kind of glad he isn't, but...
Me too.
Yeah.
There is, like, one reference to it. On the desk, he has the Arkham Scarecrow glove.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Which could have just been intended as, like, a trophy type thing.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked
It's, like,
much
very
about...
just in the background. We don't really get, like, a shot of it. It's just... If you know to look for it, it's there.
We haven't talked much about him. He's in Luke Cage. He's, I guess, just in crime shows. We've got several characters like that with this, where it's like, oh, if not typecasting the character, typecasting the genre.
Yeah, he at least is a doctor this time. He's not a mobster like in Luke Cage.
Yeah.
And he's not, like, walking around being like, oh, I watched This Is Us and I cried so much. Like he was in Luke Cage.
Oh my god.
And
I did like him in that show, but yeah, that was unfortunate. Dan Schneider for another super chat. The gangsters and what they're doing is something Batman would be keeping on top of, even if the events of this show weren't happening. And so he agrees a little bit more with me, it sounds like. But like I said, it also just depends on what his situation is. Like, you can make me believe that he's spread too thin. I'm just saying, all things being equal, I feel like he'd be paying attention to it. And maybe he wasn't, he just couldn't get there for some reason. I forgot about Alfred being in the hospital and all of that, so...
Yeah, I mean, the city basically a week ago had, like, a 9/11 event.
Yeah. And all the emotional, personal stuff he went through. You know, he's dealing with a lot.
Yeah, and he got shot with
He
a
got shot.
shotgun right to the chest.
That's true, too. Well, I don't
He's
mean
probably a little sore.
I don't mean to keep going around about it, but the big hang up for me again is still just all the Falcons. Like, if you didn't have that, there'd be so much less of this that would be publicized. But I'm not saying I don't want that plot point. That was one of the most shocking and cool things in the show. But
Yeah, for sure. I think we have some more super chats too further up.
oh, okay, I'll go find them.
Oh, it's just the one.
It's not letting me scroll for some reason. Austin, would you read it?
Yeah, it's from Brian O for 199. He says petition for Eve to be revealed as Clayface in the Batman 2.
Yes.
Exactly. I just already refer to her as Clayface. Like, I was talking to somebody and they were like, "Oh, didn't you say Clayface was in that show?" And I was like, "Oh, I probably did, but not
You did.
literally."
But then it kind of.
Yeah.
Even
Well,
on a
it's
second
funny.
viewing, I completely forgot that her last name was Carlo, and I missed all the stuff with the wigs
I don't
and
think it
everything,
ever
so-
actually comes up.
Okay. That's
But I
why.
I don't remember.
I just
But
heard you
also-
say something about that, and then I forgot about it.
There was also that rumor a while ago that Clayface was going to be the main villain of the Batman 2, but that would be the Matt Hagen version. And that would be
Yeah.
more grounded, like Darkman type thing, which could have been cool and like would have made sense. Like, oh, like the Carlo, we just did the name reference in the Penguin show, so makes sense that they do Matt Hagen to distinguish it. But apparently that was debunked and not true. So, we
But
still
if
have
it
no idea.
was,
No one knows. It's-
Darkman Clayface would be the greatest thing ever, and
I'd
I would
love-
love that.
I'd love it, especially since we're getting the DCU like more sci-fi body horror Clayface movie. Like, give me the best of both.
And did you know this,
Yeah,
Jason? We're
suck
doing
me
a
up.
Clayface movie by himself. Because
Yeah.
we're just obsessed with Clayface right now. And we just did
Yeah.
Good.
Carlo in the 89 Batman Resurrection novel. Like, we just cannot get away from Clayface right now.
He was in Creature Commandos. He's got his own movie. Yeah,
He's
everywhere.
in Cape Crusader.
He's in Cape Crusader. He's in the Harley Quinn show. Like, we are obsessed with Clayface right now.
Yep.
So
As we should be.
I feel like I will probably watch the Batman again, in the not too distant future. I feel like it'll be weird watching it though with Penguin because he's not gonna be dropping F-bombs every 5 seconds, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's weird. That would
Matt
be
Reeves
weird
has talked
going
about that. He said he it's difficult writing his dialogue now that that movie's gonna have to.
He
be
will get the
PG-13.
one F-bomb though, right? Next time.
I'm putting my money on that. Yeah, I think Oz will get the token F-bomb in that second movie. That'd just be perfect.
Speaking of that, I meant to ask you guys this earlier. Do you think that Oz has his purple car in the Batman, or did he buy that after the events of that movie?
I think he did, but I think it was a different one. I think it was purple, but you just can't tell him though.
And Batman does destroy his cars, so like, it might be that he
He
gets
got
that.
a new one after that.
See, I want to think that he gets a more eccentric car because of Batman destroying his car and because of Batman's car, and that is the closest to stealing the Batmobile that we get, is that he gets an eccentric car because of Batman's car.
Do you think we get a sequence in the Batman 2 where Batman stumbles upon Oz's mom?
No,
Oh.
but that would be cool.
It would be really cool. Yeah, where he, like, comes
I
in
don't think they'll do any major character stuff with him like that.
But like, you don't necessarily have to do that. Like, you could just be like, he like breaks into that place and like comes down and like the mom's there in like the bed, and Batman's like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah,
necessarily
could just
mean
be
like it
this
has
is
to be
weird.
like a big character moment, but you
Mm.
could have something in a sequence.
But also, that's
Very
the type of
forward.
thing that would get. That's also the type of thing that would get Oz to really freak out if he found out.
yeah. And then
Don't
my
touch
worry would
my
just
mother,
be.
and then he gets his weapon umbrella and he shoots
Yeah.
at him. Yeah, there you go.
Then
In
my,
the chest,
my worry would
his
be
umbrella
that
shotgun.
they just wouldn't
He's
do
like,
that.
"Oh."
It's-
Why do I keep getting it in the chest? That's when he gets Robin. He's like, I need somebody to take, to take.
With the bullseye,
Yeah, I need somebody in sparkling red, so don't shoot at him instead.
I hope that's just the reason in the second one.
Yeah, that'll
But-
be what happens. And then Vic, or Robin will remind Oz of Vic.
John, what do you want from Penguin in the second movie? How much stuff from the show do you think they'll include?
I mean, I'd like there to be at least some references, something that you don't have to have seen the show, but if you've seen the show, the big thing is I just want Sophia to come back because she's now one of my favorite Batman villains.
It's great.
Screen, and I'd like to see what Penguin looks like right after killing Vic. Like, what does that do to him, if anything?
Mm-hmm.
But mostly, I want to get back to the Batman stories.
Well, you got to
Yeah.
wait a couple
Vic-
of years now.
What? Sorry, what, Cap?
You got to wait a couple of years now, unfortunately.
Well,
Yep.
if that movie ever comes,
Yep.
I just think she deserves. Like, I don't think they'll use Sophia in the second movie, but don't get me wrong. That actress deserves to get to be a Batman villain in a Batman thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With Batman in it.
there is a Batman in your Batman universe, yeah.
And for
And
a
then,
show where nobody involved seemed to be thinking about Batman through the entire making of it, a lot of those actors sure seem to know their Batman. Like with interviews, the guy playing Victor really knows his Batman.
Well,
Well,
when
there
we
is
reviewed
that
the
one
pilot,
with Sorry, what, Robert?
well, when we reviewed the pilot, we talked about the Jason Todd parallels with him, and I think he's
Right.
talked about that in interviews.
Yeah.
Well, and he reminds me a little bit of the Batman '89 retroactive, a Robin character now. The Drake, and just some of the talk they had back in the day of a Black Robin character.
See, I
And,
thought
all
he
that
didn't
stuff
know
did,
anything
like-
about comics. I thought that was. I thought he didn't know anything about Batman.
No, he seems to be a fan.
Okay.
Yeah, he talked about rumors that or speculation that people threw around that he was going to turn into Victor Zsasz. He clearly
Yeah,
knew,
I heard that.
he
one.
clearly knew who that was.
Or Austin's favorite.
Oh yeah, that he's gonna be Mr. Freeze, which is still possible because when you die, you become cold. So it could just be that he is metal suit keeps his neck intact, and his attacks.
No,
That
he's
is
the
the
head.
only-
He's just the head.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it helps him breathe. And then
That
he
is
comes
the
back,
only plot twist I will accept from the Batman too.
and he comes back for revenge against us as Mr. Freeze, and it'll be awesome. And
I need that
instead
to
of
not
having a-
happen.
instead of having a frozen wife, he'll be in a metal suit, so he can live underwater. He'll be hanging out with the corpses of his parents under the flood area, and then
No, I
that'll-
mean they'll just rebuild his body in a
He was
suit and he'll be
not.
cyborg. I mean that's
Yeah. yeah, either yeah.
And then he'll say he's Cyborg Superman, but he won't be wearing a Superman costume.
I'm Cyborg Superman.
Okay, Jason,
Yes.
anything else about the show that we haven't talked about that you really wanted to?
I'm trying to think. This is a long.
There's so
this
much.
is a long show. I don't know. I mean, just the fact that I just really like Penguin being able to talk his way out of things and kind of play everyone, especially at the beginning. I feel like that stuff is really fun where he's playing both both sides, the Maronis and the Falcones. I think I prefer the first half to the second half because it just kind of gets really messed up at the second half of it. But yeah.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about is just how. We've talked about how dense the show is, but a lot of these, superhero adaptation things to streaming have been way too long in the tooth and easily could have just been movies. And I don't have that with this even a little bit. And I don't know. I think I'm too. After seeing this twice, especially, I think I'm in that place where this is maybe even just on a storytelling and character level even inching out Daredevil a little bit for me. Because
So-
I've always said the first season of that is maybe the greatest comics adaptation to screen of anything. I think this is right up there, and maybe even past it now, which is maybe not fair because it's so like HBO crime drama. But I'm telling you, folks that haven't read a lot of like serious Batman comics, particularly from the era I mentioned earlier, this is not far removed from that stuff. Like, it is still really good adaptation.
So I think this is the best live action like comic book TV show, but like I would probably say that like Jessica Jones season 1 and Daredevil are more like my favorite, even though I think this is probably technically better. But that I think just comes down to those are characters I like more, and this is the Penguin, who traditionally is a character I don't care about, but I love this Penguin. Like, he's become one of my favorite Batman villains on film with this. But like, it just comes down to apples and oranges at that point.
Yeah, for me, Daredevil's still the best specifically live action superhero show, but that's also just more traditional superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
season 2 starts great but ends terribly. So like it's by no means a perfect show, but the season 3 is really good. So it's just hard to compare something that has multiple seasons to just one. But
well, I'm
like,
fine keeping one in a vacuum though, because if that had never gotten more seasons, that stands alone fine as a piece.
I won't argue.
Yeah,
that
I'd
it's
still
maybe better
probably
written.
pick it up a little bit, at least for what I'd rather watch.
Yeah, this still might be better written than Daredevil season 1. It's just more of a taste.
That's what I'm saying, and I've gone back to it recently, and there's some things in it that feel a little bit like quaint and like oddly old-fashioned now to me that I didn't have last time I watched it. So some of it's just proximity, and like we just looked at this, and I'm on kind of a high with it right now, so I may not feel that way about it later. And I'm just trying to be personally, kind of objective about it. Where like, yes, Daredevil's more my thing. But I think one of the things that excites me about this, Austin, is I also don't typically care that much about the Penguin as a character, and it's very surreal that like one of the greatest comic adaptation things now in my mind of all time is a Penguin show.
I know.
Like, you just gotta step back for a second and go, one of the best shows now is about the Penguin.
Burgess Meredith
Yes,
is
Robert.
best.
Shocking.
Hold on, Robert, hold him up again. This is what he's saying. He's like, "Meh."
Hey, look, it's P. N. Gwyn.
It was really weird. I watched a interview with a lot of the cast.
Yeah.
Like 4 of them. It was like Penguin and his mom and Victor and Sophia.
I think I saw the same one you did, maybe.
And they were talking about the like previous iterations of Batman. And it was
I did not hear this.
really weird how it was like they are all from like it was really fun like seeing them talk about the different iterations because they're all from different generations. So you've got like one of them talking about Batman Forever, one of them talking about 89, and one of them talking about like The Dark Knight, and then the woman who plays his mom is just like, well, I watched the 60s show.
So that means that she actually credibly knows more about Penguin than anybody else there, because all of the major hallmarks start there.
well, and out of those things listed, it's the only thing that has Penguin.
Well, right. Well, I mean, whoever brought up 89 might have also talked about Returns. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Well-
assuming that's Colin Farrell.
I know that Matt Reeves loves Batman Returns, and Matt Reeves also grew up on the 60s show. Yeah, he loves all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Robert, that exact part of the 66 box set is a prop in a scene of my movie. As soon as you lifted that up, I was like, I was just looking at footage of that the other day. John, I'm sorry that you haven't gotten a lot of time in tonight. We haven't heard from you a ton.
You didn't even put him in the description.
Oh, did I not?
No.
I meant to.
I'm not actually here.
I meant to. Oh, you're right.
I think
Yeah, I was
John's just our
surprised.
witness.
Okay, watch this. I'm gonna put it in brackets. And also John. There we go.
And introducing John.
John, I'm sorry, man. I feel like I've shafted you on accident here.
Oh no, it's fine. Pretty much anything I was gonna say has been covered at some
You can always jump in, man. Interrupt me. It's fine. I talk a lot.
All right, I got the parentheses, so
You're gonna.
I almost want to throw in and introducing now. I think I'm going to. And
I don't know who that guy is that does those small moves.
And introducing John. No one will have any idea why it says that. Hey, John, was there anything that you did not like about the show?
I don't want to say that there wasn't necessarily anything I disliked. But for me, like, and I think why I put Daredevil over this is I don't care about the actual gang stuff in this, like him trying to manipulate the Falcons and the Maronies. Like, it's fine, it's serviceable. But when the stuff in the show that I liked was just Penguin and I suddenly forgot her name, Sophia, like their interactions and then his interactions with Vic. So if I had to give, if we were doing like best thing, worst thing, I guess the worst thing is just all the manipulations with the drugs and the gang stuff. I don't care about any of that. Like, it was fine, but not my thing.
Well, and not to speak for you.
You just
but,
like
I mean,
him with a gavel.
Don't interrupt, John. We've introduced him. Okay, we need everybody to get on board with our new co-host. Okay.
But I mean, you did love episode 4, and I think the show kind of peaked for you there. I don't think.
Yes, the show peaks for me with episode 4. Although episode 8 came close just because of how messed up some of that stuff is.
I'm
getting to see that darker side of the Batman universe finally explored on screen.
I would call 8 the best episode because I was shocked by how well it stuck the landing.
Not
8 is really good, but 4 is just the best like representation of how truly messed up Gotham as a city is that I don't think any of the movies have gotten close to. And
that's the best standalone episode, sir.
And just like Sophia going from just like this normal person to like this kind of, because she was put into the cell with all these different, like, with all these messed up people, and then she becomes messed up herself.
She deserves the Emmy for that. I mean, it's ridiculous. That, like, I was impressed from the first few frames of that episode, or when we get into the flashback, with how completely different she is in the past. We're like, we've gotten used to her with this like deer in the headlights look, and then like in the same episode, she's able to toggle back and forth so naturally. It's ridiculous.
Especially since, like, when you shoot things
out of sequence.
Yeah, you shoot them out of sequence. So
well, there's two big things that keep episode 4 like maybe a little bit above episode 8. One is that Penguin did not use a weapon umbrella to kill anyone.
That really just has ruined most of the show.
He didn't do that in 4 either. What's your point?
But it was not about him. But then also, I guess it's only the one thing. But then,
okay.
It's also not the best episode of the season because Magpie died and they wasted her. So there we go.
I actually liked Magpie in this. With
she was great.
What we got from her.
No, I was just excited. Like, oh, they put in like a little Batman villain. Like, that's fun.
And they did a great job selling just how awful and horrible Arkham Asylum is in this universe. I don't want to be...
That scene where she finds out that she's not going to trial is so...
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And then the stuff with Arkham 2, I really hope that this plays more into the story of maybe the movies down the road, just because one of my nitpicks with that first movie is we dropped that backstory about Bruce's mom and tying her to Arkham Asylum, which is a Earth 1 reference, and her being there and her family being tied to that, and then it doesn't come up much, so I'm still hoping we go somewhere with that, with Bruce like in his blood being more tied to Arkham Asylum in this universe. I hope that pays off somewhere.
The Arkhams will be part of the Court of the Owls.
There you go. great.
I just want to see how this universe's Riddler survives in that Arkham.
Well, the other inmates try to fight him, and he's like, "No!"
He just starts singing.
Yeah, that's his defense mechanism.
And his headphones fall off.
Be like, "Don't worry, bro, I got you," and then he'll fight them.
The Joker's got his back.
Hey,
Yeah,
Robert,
exactly.
now that
He's
you
his magpie.
now that you brought up, mentally disturbed Martha Wayne, I have a prediction for the sequel.
Why did you say that name?
And this could potentially, it's his mother's name. This could potentially tie into the Court of the Owls idea if they end up doing that, Austin. I wonder if they don't come up with a plot reason to get Bruce thrown into Arkham in that movie.
Maybe they also had Martha thrown in.
Well, she's still alive and she's in there?
No, I meant like back in the day.
Oh,
But,
I see.
But yeah, no,
there's
you
a
can do
big
that.
twist. Your mom's still alive. She's in Arkham.
Because I was just
God.
thinking if
Don't
they
say
wanted
that. I
to,
saw her die.
And she's the Joker.
if they wanted to really explore the asylum, you could do the classic like Batman gets thrown in there thing, which
That's what I went for the third.
which we've not done in a movie, and I'd really like to see that somewhere. It doesn't have to be this one, but I would love to do kind of an Arkham Asylum, like not the video game exactly, but
I would want
something
that
like
in
that.
the DC where you can do more. You can have more villains.
I don't know. I feel like we have the exact right setup for Batman has to like delve into hell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Against Dante's Inferno.
Mhm.
And you could have a conspiracy with the Court of the Owls where they get him thrown in. That's what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get Sophia Falcone back, like in that movie too.
Now, what I'd love, that's true. What I just said I don't think she'll be in it, but I didn't think of this idea until now. I don't know if they'll do that, but it would be really cool if they did. Also, I don't know how you can contrive it, but I want them to come up with an excuse if he gets thrown in to do it with the Batsuit, because I just love like Batman in Arkham Asylum. There's no good way to contrive that, but I would love to see that happen.
Well, you need him in the suit and the straitjacket. Like
Yes.
with the cowl on.
Well, one of the Court of the Owls will capture him and like tie him down and then bring him to the asylum, and then that's when Vic will make his final move as Mr. Freeze to kill us.
Well, and that would be a way to get Hugo Strange in there too.
Yeah.
If you
Hugo
wanted to do
Strange is
that.
like the main one I kind of want is like one of the main villains in this universe for a
Well,
Batman movie.
I mean,
Robert, like you were probably thinking. This whole time I've been thinking about Trial, and I really like that episode.
Great.
I'd love for them to do some of that.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I always wanted. And for the second movie, just the way Matt Reeves is talking about, I've just always assumed that the second movie will probably have more of a one-off villain, whether it is Scarecrow or Clayface or whoever. That'll probably be more of just a movie 2 villain. But then the third one, if it is Batman and Arkham with the Court of Owls or Hugo Strange or whatever, you could also have, Joker, Riddler, Sophia, all these other characters there, and hopefully Two-Face, because we're all hoping that they set up Harvey Dent in the second one, and then he could be Two-Faced by the third one and actually used properly. Like, that would be great.
But then you could have like a really cool dichotomy of justice thing with him in this world. But you could have Hugo Strange either be like maybe like somebody like cast down by the court or something to like kind of tie him in or something, or like maybe he could be part of the court. He could be their leader.
I really want
He'd be their
Scarecrow in
face.
this universe. Like,
I want Scarecrow so bad.
I love Scarecrow.
Austin,
Thank
you
you
and I
for
can
some
turn
spin-off.
anything into a speculation cast.
We can.
Austin, just because you want Scarecrow means they will never do Scarecrow in this universe.
Well, this is the reason that I really want an Arkham Asylum show, because you're just not going to have enough time to do all the villains people want. And we kind of got 4 or more in the Batman, and we just did a couple of major ones here, or that at least are feeling major now. But that'd be a way to really flesh that stuff out. We already know that we have their Joker in Arkham already, so you could have any villains you wanted to.
Well,
Was
especially because, like, at what point do you, like, add more villains? Because I assume each movie will have, like, a couple villains littered.
Mhm.
But, like, how many do you add and how many do you bring back? Like, obviously
Yeah.
Penguin will show up, but, like, will the Riddler pop up again for, like, a couple scenes in the next film? Like, you know,
If
Catwoman
Batman gets
pops
thrown
up.
into Arkham Asylum, then yeah, like hopefully
Exactly,
he
yeah.
does. Like I actually kind of really like that idea.
Well, Austin, was the Arkham Asylum show the one that was announced and then scrapped and now is being reworked for the DCU?
Well, and I think that version was also scrapped. I think it was GCPD, then switched to Arkham, and then switched
Yeah.
to DCU, and then scrapped.
Okay.
But I also think, like, with how the Reeves films have gone, like, I feel like it was scrapped there because, like, they're probably still, you know, figuring out what 2 was, like, at that point.
Yeah.
So, like, things are constantly changing, and then it switched to the DCU, and then they haven't figured out what their DCU Batman is yet, so, like, you also can't go, you know, too far with certain things.
Yeah, I think their priority now is just getting the Batman 2 made, or at least filming before they commit to any other spin-off. Like, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Yeah, because they thought they were going to develop 2 or 3 of these at the same time, and then the Penguin was far enough along in pre-production that they went ahead and got that going, but they couldn't get that other one happening. So, like, that's the only reason this came out.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels, in a weird way, premature now because we're going to have to wait so long for the next one. It almost would have been smarter to wait a year before they released this, but...
Oh, well, at least next time we can have the Scarecrow spin-off and the Harvey Dent spin-off and the GCPD
Mr. Freeze
spin-off.
spin-off.
And the
Well,
other Clayface spin-off.
Yeah, my big,
Yeah.
that was one of my big takeaways from this was I was like, and I think one of the reasons I was so excited about it, where I was like, oh, I buy they could do a character study about anybody.
Mhm.
Like, you made one of the best comic adaptations ever, a show about the Penguin. Do
You know it
anyone
would
you
be-
and we're the most fascinating character of the show is Sophia Falcone of all people. Like, who the hell cares?
You know, it would be the ultimate mic drop, is if the next spin-off is the Alfred spin-off.
Oh,
And we just have,
Let's make it.
yeah.
But then there are villains.
the other
There's just so
saga of Batman's butler.
Yeah, there's just so
Exactly.
many. There's just so many villains that you're not going to revolve a whole movie around, like, you know, ventriloquist or Professor Pig. Like, there's tons of villains you could just populate Arkham with. That could be really cool to see
Yeah,
in this
John
universe.
Kelling says a lot of these villains could just already be in Arkham, and that's what I was suggesting.
That's the nice thing about getting Joker at the end of that first film, is that there's an implication of history between
Yes.
stories.
A bunch of crap happened in that first year, apparently, but yes. Leonard Vole, I don't know what's been said so far, but my hot take is that Penguin will be the main villain for Part 3, or at least he'll have all the power as mayor. I think some of that really depends on if they make another season of this show, but I
Mhm.
think if they don't, you're likely right about that.
When he was supposed to be the
That could
villain
be
of
a
2, that's something they've talked about, is
Oh.
that the story was supposed to
right.
be the Batman 2, and then it gets, like, taken over into the show. So
Well, and that could be a great through line, whether they make a season 2 or not. But, you know, whether it's
He
the
could
second
definitely get a
movie or
bigger
second
role.
season. Yeah, but we see him become mayor, and then in the third movie, he's just the mayor. You know, that's just the status quo. That could be really cool.
he
Yeah.
could have a big role every movie.
Now, I'm a hypocrite because I don't know how I feel about doing a second season of the show, but if they announced they just changed the name and it's called Mayor Penguin, I'm very excited about that.
What if
Or
it's called
if they
Mayor Penguin takes the
What are his
Batmobile?
policies?
and then if you did a third season, that has to be called Penguin Steals the Batmobile, and then I'm complete. Like, I could die happy. I've got a trilogy of Penguin shows. Mayor
The entire
Penguin.
season about him just stealing the Batmobile.
Yeah,
But it'll be even better because it'll be
Whole
after the
season.
Batman 3, so Batman will die at the end of that film, and then the Batmobile will just be there, so Penguin will take it.
My new favorite show is The Batmobile.
the Batmobile. You know, it's just, we've had so many Batmobile movies. We're running out of names. We had to tack the on the front of it.
I mean, that's better than the Alfred.
Well, yeah, you can't do an
The
Alfred
Butler.
show because it has to be the. So it has to be the Butler.
Pennyworth.
The Pennyworth.
The Pennyworth.
I'd watch that.
Yeah, because we've already had a show called Pennyworth.
So it has to
We're
be
in the bad
Pennyworth.
future. We've done these
Well,
things for so long.
that's why you call it the Pennyworth. It's the soft reboot.
Yeah.
I do either or do any, either. John is here. Do do any of you guys have anything else about the show you want to throw out before we get going? It's getting late.
Except
Jason's gotta go to
John.
bed.
Except John.
No,
you can't say anything.
especially John. Look, we have to be kind to our guests. Okay.
Introducing.
No, it's fine. I'm the mute co-host.
Yeah, you know, your mic wasn't even working before we started. I'm not sure that it mattered. I'm just kidding, John.
Let's make a new show about him. He's the John.
I mean,
We're
that sounds
introducing
it could be
the
something
John.
else.
Okay, we've officially gone off the rails.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah, it's all Austin's fault.
anything else
Let's
we
do
need to
the
bring up, guys?
Professor Pig show called The Pig.
The
The
Professor.
Nick Cage movie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. True. Yeah.
Wait, Nicolas Cage is Professor Pig?
Well, he
Huh.
was in a movie called The Pig.
And I can't
No,
even...
it's just called Pig, so the reboot's the Pig.
Oh, okay. I
Oh,
thought
there
it was-
you go.
Okay,
There
yeah.
you go.
Oh, I thought it was The Pig.
Dan Schneider,
No,
you
it's
mofos went for
supposed to
3
be
hours.
egghead.
Look, we could have gone for 8. That's the length of the series. We go the length of the thing all the time, but we mercifully we did not do that.
I can't even say on this show the name of the show that they would make for Dick Grayson.
You can say
Well
The
done.
Robin.
That's pretty good. What are you talking about? That show would be called John Blake.
The John Blake.
That's how we bring back the Nolan.
I
Yeah.
prefer your first name. You should go by it more often. The.
John Kelling, in the criminal justice system of Gotham City, the people are represented by 3 separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate the crime, the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders, and the goddamn Batman. These are their stories. That's pretty good, John Kelling. Not to be confused with the one we just introduced this evening. Okay, are you guys good to wrap up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Well, just the last thing I want to say is just how good the cast is across the board. You know, you talked a lot about Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti, but also, I mean, I love Clancy Brown. I'm sad to see him go, but he got a pretty big role. I'm glad he was in more than just like one episode. And the actress who played his wife, I just adore. It was also sad to see her go, but you know, she's been in tons of stuff like the Punisher show. She was just in a voice in an episode of Creature Commandos, but I first saw her in X-Men 3 as the Doctor Lady. So nice to see her in better comic book properties.
That's a great spin-off too.
No, she's been in tons of stuff. She has got a major role in Heroes,
She's in a lot of superhero
if
things.
memory serves. Yeah, she's also typecast as like scientist from India, like all the time. And crime bosses. She's done that a couple times too.
Yeah,
Oh, she's
she's
in Star
the
Trek
main
Beyond?
crime boss in Renfield as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she is. I forgot about that.
Huh.
But yes, Robert, I agree.
She's Gozer in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh my God, really? That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
What?
Well, I mean, somebody had to be standing there wearing that.
Yeah, it was Olivia
No,
Wilde.
No,
it's
she's
probably-
the voice.
It's probably the voice.
Yeah, I was gonna
Probably
say
the-
she's the voice. That's crazy.
That's
That's what threw
funny.
me off. That makes that even weirder. Why did they stunt cast the body?
They didn't
I
even
just
let her
assumed it was
say-
Olivia Wilde's voice.
They didn't even let her
Filter.
voice it.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, I haven't seen a meaty narrative handle like this in a long time, especially based on a comic book thing, and it was screwed up but delightful all at the same time.
No, this is my new favorite show.
Exactly.
I could write about this all day long. It was really nice to have a thing like this again.
Now all eyes are on you, Born Again.
Yeah. I hope that's great, because especially right after this, it's a hard thing to follow. And I mean, you don't want to compare things too much, but it's just kind of weird that we're getting Born Again right after this, when the big comparison for me for great, dark, serious, based on comic book things is this, or is that, at least for, like shorter season TV shows. Because obviously, people would point to like Invincible and The Boys and various things, but...
Well, hold on to your butts, because according to that showrunner, Daredevil Born Again will be darker and more grounded than the Penguin.
No, I forgot he said that.
Yeah.
I was excited about that. I think my excitement level just dropped by like 3 notches after...
I mean,
Yep.
he also said that there are
heard
parts
that.
in the original show that are just people talking that are very boring, even though that's like the best part of that show.
Yeah, he said we don't want people just standing around talking about, character
Being
motivation.
a hero.
Yeah, being a hero. That's what it was.
Which
And
is
I'm like-
the Daredevil and Punisher episode, which is arguably the best, or one of the best episodes.
I'm like, well, I mean, like, I sympathize with the idea of let's not retread ground, but what worries me is when he's like, there's too much talking.
But we're also retreading ground by doing another season of Matt and Punisher being retired and coming out of retirement.
And I don't know, I think season 3 kind of gives the final word on Matt and Fisk's relationship, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well,
They should have called that show Mayor Kingpin.
Yeah.
The Daredevil, the Born Again.
The
It's funny that we're so hyped for the idea of
Born Again.
Mayor Penguin, and we're doing that with Fisk, and it's more like, oh yeah, I guess we're doing that.
No, I'm legitimately kind of excited about that, but...
I think Robert's just referring to me because I've complained about it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm less excited about it. Look, just give me this one. There's a possibility of a Disney Plus live-action superhero show being decent again.
No, I mean, I hope it's good. I just, like I've said to Robert a few times, I just feel like their relationship's so done. Like, I didn't need more of Fisk after season 3.
No, I
Which is fair.
don't.
Maybe they'll
disagree
make
with
it
you.
work.
But if you, I'm not saying that you needed that. It's just if it's good, I'll be excited. I don't know. But
Exactly.
I feel like when your showrunner is comparing it to this material, you're protesting too much. Like that sounds a little insecure to me. And like I'm saying this out of context. I didn't read or listen to that interview, but like if I'm that showrunner, I'm not mentioning this show. Like,
Yeah, I
you
feel
can
like-
listen to it.
And that it's going to be darker, which in terms of subject matter, I don't believe that for a second. I just think it'll be more violent. No way the subject matter goes to the places that this show does. No way.
Do we know if Matt's mom is in the show yet? She was in season 3.
Can I
Yeah,
say
I
something really dark and screwed up?
Yes.
Even with my kid here. The
Go for it.
only way they can top that is if we find out that Fisk's wife, or Vanessa, is dead, and he digs up her corpse and sleeps with it. That's just, they have to go that far.
I'll do you one better.
They have to go that far.
I'll do you one better. It's not Fisk and Vanessa. It's Matt and Karen.
Oh god. In Cap's defense, he did recently watch Nosferatu. I think he just has corpse sex on the brain.
Hey, I don't need you to defend me. I'm just trying to think of the darkest thing that show could do
God,
to
I
make
hate it when I have corpse sex on the brain.
It's just it's been sticking with me ever since then, and it's
She's giving me so many ideas.
John. I'm really sorry that you had to witness this in your first show. I feel really bad about that.
What is this, Arkham Asylum?
But because it's more corporate, it'll be corpse sex in a White Castle.
That's ultimately why they built that White Castle for Ironheart, was just to then use it in Born Again.
Yeah, exactly. Just to get the most use out of it.
Okay, we're gonna get going. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. On that note,
And on that note,
we'll see you next time. I was Captain Logan. We had my son Jayson. We had Austin the Day Ghost. We had Robert Wilde, and we introduced Sean Samuel. Hope you guys had a good time. We certainly did. We'll see you again later this week for more streams here on Geekvolution. Leave your comments. Tell us what you thought about the Penguin, and we'll see you later. We'll see you in 3 years for the Batman Part 2. Bye, everybody.
See ya.